across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 6. It is Tuesday, the 23rd of September. It's still a bit dark out there, but don't worry. There is light at the end of the tunnel. We'll be bringing you all the news that's fit to print, and some of it that isn't actually as well. Peter Blackstein returns from his trip abroad. Very nice to see you, Peter.
And you, Gunnar.
There's some great stories in the papers this morning, all kind of going on something different this morning, funnily enough. We'll run through those for you in a moment. A lot of them featuring Fergie, the Duchess of York. 7 charities have shown leadership by axing the Duchess over Epstein emails. So now, will the royals continue to indulge her, it says on the front page of the Daily Mail. Will the King now banish Fergie? Humiliating day for her yesterday. 7 charities. When Jeremy Cole started his show, 1 charity had dumped her. By the end of it, all 7 had. Basically, she'd got these damning email receipts from messages she'd sent to Jeffrey Epstein after he was, of course, found guilty of some disgusting and disgraceful paedophile offences. She had sent grovelling messages to the notorious sex predator, which we talked about a little bit yesterday. She is on the front page of the Mail, as I say, also on the front page of the Times as well. Charity shunned Duchess over Epstein friend email. She called him a supreme friend. The Teenage Cancer Trust, one of those who said, "We have made the decision to end our relationship with the Duchess of York. As of today, she is no longer a patron of the Teenage Cancer Trust. We would like to thank her for her support." When you think about what Epstein did, and when you think about her representing a teenage charity, you can understand why they've done it. Julia's House, another place in Wiltshire and Dorset, it's a children's hospice. They'd said it would be inappropriate for the Duchess to continue as its patron, while the founders of the Natasha Allergy Research Foundation said they were disturbed to read the Duchess's correspondence with Epstein. So the big question is what is the Duchess of York for? And if she's going to be living on the Windsor estate with her ex-husband Prince Andrew, who's also in disgrace thanks to Jeffrey Epstein, should they really be being put up there? That is the big question. We'll be asking that question to you this morning. Nigel Farage still makes quite a few of the front pages after his announcement yesterday that he wants to completely shake up the way that migrants get benefits in this country. He says Reform UK will save £234 billion by banning foreigners from claiming benefits. A lot of people now looking at that this morning. He says the plans to scrap indefinite leave to remain and require all migrants to gain work visas at a third higher than the current salary threshold will stop endless, cheap foreign labour. The Times say that they're not sure the figures actually add up. We'll be looking at that as well. The other big story from America is all around paracetamol. Donald Trump came out yesterday, a bit of a surprise press conference, and told people, particularly pregnant women, that paracetamol is not safe to take. Fascinating story. We'll get stuck into that as well. Meanwhile, if you've forgotten how to do it, here's how to get in touch.
Morning, Mike. Love your show. Listen every single day.
Hi, Mike. This is Daniel calling from Tel Aviv.
Morning, Mike, and the breakfast team. Travelling Boz here.
Good morning, Mike. Head from Kent.
Hi, Mike. Sammy here, all the way from New Zealand.
Morning, Mike. Sean from Grimsby.
Morning, Mike. Lynn from Brighton here.
Captain Flip Flop strikes again. He's now taking his orders from the pro-Palestinian mob of the Labour Party. We're doomed!
A very good morning to you. That's the message you're starting off with. Rachel Reeves, by the way, who's been a bit quiet lately, has decided she wants to launch a tax raid on pensioners. It's nice, isn't it? People who've saved up all their lives and been responsible with their money and managed to put some of it away to look after themselves and their families. Now she wants to take some more money off them. Isn't that nice? And also, a strange one on the front of the Sun. And Peter, maybe we'll start with that since you are here in your capacity as the former police officer. Bruckner, this is the guy who was released recently from another offence that he had committed that put him in prison. He's thought to be one of the suspects in the Madeleine McCann case. He's on the front page. He's walking around, basically, saying, "I can solve the scandal of the century." Nobody knows quite what he means, but he's showing off his electronic tag. He's buying phones. He's being sort of whimsical. He's, I would say, behaving in a way which I would say is at least rather suspicious.
Well, this story, actually, in a nutshell, is released prisoner buys a phone.
Yeah.
OK?
Yeah.
That's it. There is a bit more to it than that. But when I read this, of course, the former detective in me can't help but get a little bit annoyed.
Yes.
Because had I had anything to do with this investigation from a policing perspective, which I haven't, of course, right, I would be livid because The whole plan for me would have been, on the day of Bruckner's release, you put him under 24/7 surveillance.
Yeah.
Technical surveillance, physical surveillance, and the best in the world will do it so that he will not know they are there.
Right.
He would not know they were there, okay? And you would follow him continually, okay? Morning, noon and night.
Yeah.
And in support of that traditional physical surveillance, you would also deploy technical surveillance. So wheresoever he puts down his roots and starts to live, you get in there and you bug it.
Yeah.
And you also do technical surveillance on phones, laptops, iPads, anything like that.
Right.
So his every word and deed is seen or watched or overheard.
Yeah.
That is what I would have done with a plot, with a plan to see does he actually say anything whereby he compromises himself.
Yeah.
This story, of course, if that kind of operation had been launched, really scuppers it.
Right.
Because Bruckner can go online and read The Sun today and know that that phone he's bought would potentially be known about to the authorities.
Yes.
So what would he do? Ditch it and get another one.
Right.
You see, that would have been a way in.
Right.
If this story hadn't featured in the newspapers, the old Bill, having followed him, would then go into the shop, get the IMEI number of that phone, get the number of that phone, and thereafter do all the technical on it.
Yeah.
But of course, this story has scuppered any prospect of that. I'm not blaming the Sun for that. They're doing their job.
Maybe he knows that as well.
They're doing their job.
But maybe he knows that as well.
Yes, possibly.
You know?
Possibly he's playing a game. Yeah, he's a pretty sick-minded individual, whatever way you look at it.
I mean, he's a criminal, let's face it.
Yeah, he is a rapist.
You know, whether
rapist.
or not he's involved with the Maddie case, you know, anybody who goes into a shop to buy a phone, starts showing off his electronic tag, and starts telling random people he doesn't know they want me dead.
Yeah.
You know, he's clearly up to no good, is he?
Indeed, and credit to the Sun for doing what they've done. But if it had been the old days, if I'd been a part of this investigation, I would have gone to the Sun and say, please do not publish his story.
Yeah.
Do not tip him the wink that we now know what phone he's got because we bugged it.
Yeah.
Okay, and the handset and all of that, and we'll put you at the front of the queue if ever the story breaks that we want to know about. You know, in that kind of way that we dealt with journalists some years ago.
Yeah.
But alas, that of course will now not happen. But he clearly is going to be followed and watched by the media.
Yeah.
Maybe the police as well. And we'll have to see. What we can say, though, is over 18 years after Maddie disappeared, there's been some pretty poor detective work because no one's ever been caught for that.
No, indeed.
crime.
And interestingly, there's two spreads inside. One of them say cops in Germany are on high alert after Madeleine McCann suspect Christian Bruckner tried to buy an untraceable mobile phone while carrying an ID card that could allow him to flee his home country, because supposedly he's got an ID card which has not been updated. That should have been updated to say that under his bail conditions he's not allowed to travel outside of Germany, but it doesn't say that.
Yes, well, once again, are there holes in the plan that should have been hatched for his release?
Yeah.
They had months to get all their ducks in a row with regards to his release. Months and months and months. So a properly led, professional, covert investigation into this man would not have been the most challenging thing to do. It would have required a bit of nous and some resources and determination, but this all appears to be scuppered.
Yeah, interesting, fascinating story. No doubt it will fascinate us for you know, several months to come as his movements attract. Front page of the Daily Telegraph, Rachel Reeves told to launch a tax raid on pensioners. This will please you. The Resolution Foundation, right, one of these organisations riddled with sort of rich boys and girls who like sitting around telling everyone how they should be living their lives, and basically what they want the government to do and what they want Rachel Reeves to do is to come after anybody that's got any kind of money at all. These are the same people who recommended that she go after the farmers for their inheritance tax and to go after everybody else who's got anything that they've made of their lives, so that we can pay for the feckless and those who don't have any wherewithal to make any money of their own.
Yeah, the Resolution Foundation, one of those think tanks, who sometimes appear to me to be a little bit hard of thinking, really.
Yes, they do.
To be perfectly honest with you.
I'd like to make a New Year's resolution to do away with the Resolution Foundation.
Yes, I think that would have my support, that's for sure. So their plan, because of course they have links to the government, so we're told, right, would be for Reeves to reduce national insurance by 2p and then add it to income tax.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the furore if income tax is to go up by 2p?
Yeah.
And the cost of that to people in their pay packets? It would be astonishing. And of course, let's remember, Rachel Reeves said this government will not raise income tax.
Yes.
Right, on hard-working people,
right.
or whatever her phrase
Working
was.
people.
So this would fly in the face of it. And what is the budget now? 6-7 weeks away?
Yeah.
But I think we can all pretty much be guaranteed there will be tax rises of some description.
Yeah.
But of course, the headline screams that it's a tax raid that aimed at pensioners. Well, on the 11th of December this year, Mike, I become an old age pensioner.
Official.
Yeah. And as you said in your introduction, my wife and I have worked very hard, paid off our mortgage, and we've got a couple of quid to help us in later life.
Right.
And we are exactly the kind of people that the politics of envy, as displayed and mastered by the Labour Party, are coming after.
Of course they are. Because, you know, they can. Because they go, hang on a minute, how come you've got some money and these other people haven't got any at all? So we better take some of your money and give it to them.
Yeah.
Even though they haven't done what you did, and they haven't worked all their lives, and they haven't actually even bothered to try and raise any money for their own families.
6.5 million people in the UK. Let's just ponder that figure for a moment. 6.5 million released at the weekend in the media, people on out-of-work benefits.
Yeah.
That is astonishing. And of course it's going to feed into some other things that we discussed this morning. How on earth can that possibly be sustainable? No wonder this country is skint. No wonder it's going down a pan. This Labour government can't do anything when it comes to reforming welfare because all their lunatic lefties won't let them do it.
No.
Just like that happened on the previous
occasion. You can't take any money off them, no.
When they tried to reform the welfare system. The lunatic lefties won't have it. The same lunatic lefty MPs that would call me privileged because my wife and I have worked very hard to pay off our mortgage. Labour MP wrote to a fellow that I know, sent me copies of the emails between this MP up in Nottinghamshire, where he described this bloke who, like me and my wife, had worked very hard, paid off his mortgage, and he called him privileged to own his home.
Of course he is. Absolutely ridiculous. Apparently, according to this piece in Telegraph, 8.7 million people above the state pension age are already paying income tax this financial year, according to figures from a former pensions minister, Steve Webb. And now they're saying that the clear agenda seems to be to take more money, and listen to the way that they use words, right? To take more money from those who are not employees, i.e. at the expense of directors, landlords, shareholders, the self-employed and pensioners. Now, when you say the self-employed, an awful lot of people in this country are self-employed.
You're speaking of one.
They're working people. How are they not working people? But they're still employed, they're still making a living, they're still paying taxes, and they are still as worthy a recipient of anything as people who are employees. What's the difference?
Yeah, exactly. I'm self-employed and have been for 25 years. And I pay my taxes. My accounts are done every year, pay my taxes, rather a lot of money, but I don't mind. If I've earned it, I'll happily pay my taxes.
Up to a point.
Yeah, I'd be happier if I thought my taxes were being properly used in this country, instead of having public services that waste so much money, people in public service dealing with public money as if it's something they can fritter and not keep a very close eye on and treasure every penny and be effective with it and don't waste it. But we've got billions going down the Swanee. We've got billions going to the undeserving. And who's going to pay the price if this happens?
We are.
The workers.
Yeah, exactly.
The workers.
Not the people they call workers, though, because the people they call workers work in the public sector and they all get a pay rise because they deserve it, you see, because they're doing a service to the nation as opposed to what you and I are doing, which is also doing a service to the nation by supplying them with a load of tax money. Rachel Reeves has been busy, though. She was out yesterday talking about a second runway at Gatwick. Let's have a look and see what she has to say about
Government are backing a second runway here at Gatwick. That's in addition to our commitments to a third runway at Heathrow, small modular reactors, a new nuclear power station in Suffolk, backing energy projects and transport projects right around the country. But this extra runway at Gatwick will mean that people going on holiday will have a greater choice of destinations. It will mean lower costs for a family holiday, and it will also mean more good jobs, paying decent wages through this injection of cash into our economy. We said as a government we would back the builders and not the blockers, and that is exactly what we are doing with this announcement.
She's doing that thing again where you smile as you same time as you talk, because if you do that, it looks like you're not worried at all about your job, and the whole fact that the economy is going down the gurgle, it doesn't matter because you're smiling, you see. Because people are really stupid because they see you smiling and they think, well, you must be happy in your job. It's been going really well. You know what I mean? By the way, I don't know why she thinks more people are going to be able to go on more holidays with more destinations, because they won't have any money left.
And I don't know why holidays are going to be cheaper, which she claimed.
Why would that happen?
How's that going to happen?
No. Also, I've been to Gatwick fairly recently, and, you know, they can't manage one runway, never mind two. Can you imagine the chaos there's going to be down there?
Yeah. I mean, another runway, more flights, in essence, good idea. Yeah. Probably good for the economy.
You would
think. It's not a new runway. They're just moving the reserve runway 12 metres, apparently.
Yeah, they've already got it.
Yeah.
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 So it's a typical Labour trick, isn't it? They're sort of opening a new runway, but it's already there.
Yes.
So...
moving it 12 yards, 12 metres.
Right.
Sticking a bit of drainage, obviously, because, you know, the runways have to drain.
And they'll have to build a new terminal, presumably, won't they?
Well, there's already two down there.
There's two down there, yeah.
I mean, I was there last week, and there was plenty of unused capacity, should we say. I mean, when our flight landed, which was about 6 o'clock in the evening, there was only one baggage doodah being used, and there's another half a dozen or so lying there dormant.
Well, yeah. How quickly did you get your bags, though? Because I came back from New York into Gatwick, right? Got to the baggage counter and the carousel, and everybody just stood there for 45 minutes before it even moved.
Yeah, quickly is not a word
45 minutes.
Yeah.
So I've only got twice as many planes coming in. How's that going to work?
Yes.
I mean, it does make you worry.
Well, then, of course, the baggage handler unions, I'm sure, will want to... flex
they'll
their
get a piece of the action,
They'll want a few quid. They'll hold the government to ransom, like so many unions are doing at the moment.
Absolutely.
And they'll get a pay rise, and our increased taxes might have to pay for it.
And then they'll probably start putting airport duty onto you because, you know, they'll have to pay for the extra money they've got to pay to the unions. So it's not really great news for anyone, this, is it?
Yeah.
Starting to go off the idea. Maybe fly from Heathrow. That's not any better, though. Right, listen, it's coming up to 20 minutes past 6. Peter Blexley is here. We've got loads to talk about. Donald Trump's talking about paracetamol. We've got a little clip for you we'll show in a minute. Also, GPs have been told they must stop dismissing patient fears. Also, my favourite story of the day, and this one will come as a bit of a surprise to you, Peter. Yeah. On the front page of The Guardian. Do you know there's been some British-Egyptian human rights activist called Alaa Abd El Fattah who's been in prison in Egypt, but Keir Starmer's been fighting to get him released, right?
Yeah.
Now, do you know what he's in prison for?
Please inform me.
A Facebook post.
Ah.
Right? But Keir Starmer doesn't like people being put in prison for Facebook posts, unless, of course, he's putting them in prison for Facebook posts.
Yeah,
and so
Lucy Connolly, anyone?
I've spotted a bit of an anomaly here, because apparently he's been fighting tooth and nail intensive lobbying by the UK government to pressurise Egypt's National Human Rights Council to release this guy, because he should never have been locked up in the first place.
There's a familiar ring to this kind of story, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so.
I think there may be others. Let me think. Lucy, what's her name? Lucy Connolly. She got locked up.
She got locked up for
a post on social media. Yeah.
Which she removed.
Yes.
But then did he 3 years in prison?
Well, she actually served about 10 months, I think, but the original sentence was 31 months. So, well, strange.
Yeah, but that's normal, though, because you get sentenced to, 7 years in prison. You get out after 2, don't you?
Yeah. Well, of course, because this government has had to release thousands of people back onto the streets, of course.
Apparently, Keir Starmer actually telephoned the Egyptian government to ask them to release him, as did Jonathan Pole, who, of course, is the guy that sold off the Chagos Islands, as did Foreign Secretary David Lammy. So they've really got behind this guy.
Well, they certainly have, haven't they, just? Goodness me. Was he Palestinian by any chance?
No, he's Egyptian, I think.
Egyptian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he walks like an Egyptian anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
6:21, we'll be back after this.
What possibly has spooked him completely into this precipitate action was Emmanuel Macron, the French president, saying that he was going to do this. And I think that probably Sir Keir Starmer thought, well, I'm going to be left, looking even more weak or I'm going to be in an even weaker position in terms of these people who want my head if I don't go along with this. Plus, I'm afraid to say, I think that Starmer himself, he's obsessed by what he calls the two-state solution.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:25. I'm Mike Graham. Got plenty of messages coming in. I'm with Peter Blexley this morning. Morning, Mike and Peter. It says, Peter in Suffolk, probably a new runway to accommodate Millipede and all our other net zero ministers while they fly around the world. Well, I mean, they're supposedly going to be, they're going to try and make it so that it's impossible to block these runway extensions, which doesn't really sit, I would have thought, with their green policies, but we shall see. Here's one from Alan. It says, looking forward to another great show again today. Even if Nigel Farage's rhetoric doesn't come to fruition, at least we've got a politician who is saying what desperately needs to be said in regards to legal and illegal immigration. This situation must be addressed, says Alan in the Forest of Dean. Well, let's talk about that, because front page of the Times, predictably, I suppose, you've got all the usual suspects saying, oh, the numbers are not great. The fact is that Nigel Farage has uncovered in a big press conference yesterday the absolute kind of depth and kind of cost of all of these migrants. 3.8 million people who came to this country. He calls it the Boris wave after Brexit, because Boris encouraged all sorts of sort of global, what you might call immigration policies, right?
Non-EU citizens.
Yeah.
And they flooded into this country. And the next 2 or 3 years, many of them will be eligible to apply to be permanent residents in the UK.
Yeah.
And that in itself is something that was thrown up through yesterday's press conference. He is undoubtedly, Mr Farage, the finest political communicator in the land.
Yes, no question.
By a country mile. Yeah. He hits the spots that others don't. And he is, of course, courageous enough to say things that others won't.
Right.
But increasingly what I'm noticing is how Mr Youssef sits by his side.
Yeah.
And he is always of fairly stern demeanour, straight-faced, very much on the facts and figures. And Mr Farage often defers to him, doesn't he, when he's speaking.
Right.
And in comes Mr Youssef, and I quite like a stern, kind of serious sort of person in politics.
Right. You don't want the Rachel Reeves smile, do you?
No.
You don't sit there smiling telling you that.
No, I quite like stern people in politics who know what they're
serious
talking about.
people.
Yeah, exactly. And realise that they are dealing with very serious matters.
And he comes from a business background, places like Goldman Sachs, whether you like it or not. They're not messing around with numbers, because you get the numbers wrong at Goldman Sachs, you're out of the job.
Boom, you're out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he rose to a senior level within that bank. I mean, this man clearly knows a lot about numbers, and it's very interesting to watch them present as a partnership, as a team. Very, very interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Now, I think he said what so many millions of people in this country are thinking yesterday, that this has got completely out of hand. This is a country in severe financial difficulties, chronic financial difficulties, and the current mishandling of the economy by Rachel Reeves, Keir Starmer and this Labour government is not making things better, it's making things worse. There has to be a firm grip taken on immigration and the welfare system. And of course they conflated the two yesterday and gave these figures, which has given huge cause for concern.
Yes, because for years we were told, were we not, oh, the thing is about the migrants coming into this country, they don't get access to benefits. If they're coming here to work, they get to work, except they didn't say they get to bring loads of dependents with them who all get access to benefits. They didn't say when people came for student visas that they would get benefits, but of course they finish their course, they go on benefits, they stay in the country, they overstay their visa, they become asylum seekers. This racket has been going on for years. Let's have a look at what Nigel said yesterday about scrapping indefinite leave to remain.
We will abolish indefinite leave to remain as a category in this country. The 800,000 people that will get indefinite leave to remain unless this policy is revoked tend to be young, tend to be low-skilled. They are going to be a huge burden on the state. What we do know is that 1 in 6 claimants of universal credit alone today, 1 in 6 is a foreign-born national.
See, that is a terrible number, isn't it? 1 in 6 is a foreign-born national.
Yeah, absolutely. It truly is. And I commend Mr Farage and Mr Youssef yesterday for highlighting these factors. You can imagine the usual suspects have thrown their toys around and got a bit upset about it and have thrown the same useless, tiresome, nonsense accusations
Well, the Guardian
around.
front page headline says, outrage as Farage threatens mass deportation of illegal immigrants. But nowhere in the actual story is there anybody quoted saying it's an outrage.
Yeah.
They've decided it's an outrage.
Of course.
But they haven't got anybody actually saying it.
Yeah, and all the usual suspects have. I was looking at social media on the way in this morning, and the usual suspects who I'm not even going to bother naming because they're such cretinous fools are really getting their knickers in a twist over all of this.
Yeah.
It is refreshing to hear politicians speaking about the major issues that affect people. Unfortunately, it's not politicians who are in power. That's the problem.
Yeah.
There's some interesting questions. If you go to the Express today, for example, there's an analysis done on what Farage said yesterday. It features on page 9. If you'll just bear with me one moment while I go to that page. And it's written by Jonathan Walker, who is the Express's Whitehall editor. And he talks about, we'll have to wait and see what happens with regards to the figures, the facts. And on that very note, Mr Youssef said yesterday that so many of the stats which we really need to see are actually withheld by the Home Office, for example, by DWP. They've got the data. They will not declare it.
Right.
They will not release it into the public domain, because if they did, I think the outrage would be enormous. Absolutely enormous.
Well, I mean, at one point, I think Nigel Farage said yesterday, we're not a food bank for the world. Because we shouldn't be, should we?
No, of course we shouldn't be. We should. But let's rewind, if we may. And I believe it was the wonderful Winston Churchill that said that the social security, as it was sort of called in those days, should be a net below which nobody should fall and everybody should rise. And that's right. It needs to be there for people in their moments of trouble, which happen to so many people.
As a safety net,
But it's a net, and you bounce back from that. And it's not a lifestyle choice. And the harsh reality is that for some people who want to sit around on their sofas in their urine-stained jogging bottoms all day long, it's a lifestyle choice. They choose to live on benefits. They are bone idle, they won't work, they probably will never work, and something needs to be done about people like that, the unwilling.
Indeed. And many of those people are natural citizens of this country. They were born here, and let's not forget there's plenty of those people around. But however, what he's talking about as well is that we shouldn't be a magnet for people to come from other countries because the benefits are so good that they can come and live like that, if they want to. Let's have a look at what he said about restricting access to benefits.
We've given you full details. None of the 800,000 plus that came here under the Boris wave that will be available to apply for indefinite leave to remain over the course of the next 3 to 4 years, none of them will be given indefinite leave to remain. None of them will be given access to the UK's benefit system, and none of them will be able to bring dependents. That, I think, is quite a lot of very exact policy detail.
And of course, as per usual, the usual suspects, as you would say, were sort of making out that these are not properly costed figures. These are not, policies that are going to work in practice. Which they always say every time Nigel Farage says anything. But of course, we haven't exactly got an incredibly efficient government acting at the moment in these areas, and neither have we ever had one, probably for the best part of 25 years.
And as was pointed out by Mr Farage and Mr Youssef yesterday, so many of the data and detailed facts and figures that we need will not be released. They will not release it because they know there would be utter outrage if people knew the length and depth and the full expense of people coming to this country, taking the mickey, abusing the system, and being a net loss rather than a net gain.
Yes.
If we had all those accurate facts and figures, there would be utter outrage.
Right. And all of these people who are critics of this kind of policy, who think that we are, a welcoming country, we should not be, nasty to immigrants. Well, what's their alternative exactly? Just to wait until we completely run out of all the money we've got, and that people like you and I ended up being taxed even more to pay for even more people coming here from even more countries because they fancy it.
Yes, and let's not ignore, though, the dilution of the very essence of Britishness, which happens when you have hundreds of thousands of people coming to this country who were not born here, not educated here, not raised in the culture and the very essence of being British, appreciating what it is to be British, understanding it, embracing it, loving it, and wanting to make it better.
Yeah.
Without that kind of thing, I don't want anybody that doesn't buy into that being here. End of story.
Exactly right. To wit, we can talk about what we talked about a lot yesterday, which was Keir Starmer's recognition of Palestine over the weekend. Piece at the front page of The Telegraph today. So Keir Starmer will tell Palestinian officials they must stop paying the families of terrorists before Britain can open full diplomatic relations. He's facing a backlash over his decision to recognise Palestine, and he's now going to insist that the Palestinian Authority should end its, wait for it, pay-to-slay policy of handing out money to the families of martyrs who were killed for attacks on Israelis. So this is a guy who's granted permanent status of a state to Palestine without saying this to them beforehand. So he's given them status, and then he's gone, he's recognised them as a state, but then he's gone, would you mind not killing Israelis and stop paying people to kill Israelis and giving them, martyr status, because that's not very nice.
Well, as Prime Minister of our house... Right? Well, actually, I'm not, my wife.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Let's just imagine I am Prime Minister of my house. I now recognise the state of ding dong ding dong bum, right?
Of course you do.
That's as relevant as what Starmer has done with Palestine.
It is.
It means absolutely nothing what I've just said. Nothing.
Except it does empower Hamas, and it does empower the terrorists who think they've won.
With what Starmer's done, most definitely. Why on earth would you say something which Hamas immediately come out and celebrate and regard as a victory? Why on earth would you do that when there are currently 48 hostages held in tunnels, caves, hovels, starved, not bestowed one shred of humanity?
Coming up to 2 years on.
Yes.
Right? Unbelievable stuff. And they celebrated, by the way, yesterday by shooting dead in the head 3 men blindfolded on their knees in the middle of Gaza because they thought they were Israeli collaborators.
Yes.
These are the people we've given, a nation status to.
Yes, they have been rewarded.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly. Starmer, this foolish, idiotic man, has done such a ridiculous thing that why would anybody do anything that Hamas are going to celebrate? Doesn't that tell you that what you've done is fundamentally wrong?
He chooses to do it on the same day as Jewish New Year falls, Rosh Hashanah. He's also criticised this morning because yesterday he had the gall to put out a tweet wishing Jewish people in this country a Happy New Year, after having recognised their sworn enemies, people who have sworn to kill them and wipe them off the face of the map.
Yes, whose sole purpose in life...
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
...is to exterminate the entire Jewish race.
Yeah.
That's Hamas's stated aim.
Yeah.
And Starmer goes and recognises the state of Palestine, which actually, as things stand, doesn't exist. Now, there may be a time, right, here I am, wildly optimistic, hoping that at some stage peace can come to the Middle East. I don't know why it should, because it hasn't done in my lifetime, so I don't know why it's going to. But just let me get wildly, ludicrously optimistic and say at some point in the future there is a window for a two-state solution. I don't think that'll ever happen, but just imagine that it might do. Then perhaps there may become a time to recognise the state of Palestine. But now is not the time. While 48 hostages, you never, ever do anything that is going to please or appease people who take hostages and regard that as a legitimate political tactic.
Exactly. Absolutely right. Let's get a voice note from Kitty.
Hi Mike, Kitty from Kent here. Don't really seem to be able to call in with any positive thoughts recently. My latest thought is that this government and Keir Starmer and his ministers, they are traitors. If you look at their litany of disasters over the last 14, 15 months, the lies, the bribes, the corrupt ministers, Chagos, Lucy Connolly, Palestine, two-tier everything, on and on and on, and I probably haven't even mentioned some of their worst offences. Have a lovely day. Hopefully I'll have some good news to call in about soon. Love the show.
Kitty, thank you very much indeed. There will be some good news. We've got some good news. We've got some stories for you that you won't believe, right? Bristol Council apparently wants you to stop calling people pregnant women. They want you to start calling them people with ovaries, right? We'll get into that. 2 million more people are going to get their bins collected only once every 3 weeks, all right? And also, there's going to be a suggestion that you should flush your loo with rainwater.
Yes.
So you better get collecting it, if I were you, because obviously Christmas is coming and, you know, you'll have a lot of people in the house, so you'll need a lot of rainwater. Anyway, listen, we'll be back with that, plus Donald Trump and the whole paracetamol row. We'll bring it to you next. Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 6:43. Peter Blexley's here with me. I've got this from Titch, who says, Mike, so far Epstein has done for Ghislaine Maxwell, Andy, Mandy and Fergie, all Brits. When will any Americans be exposed? It's a good point, isn't it?
It is.
Supposedly all these American politicians were down there all the time, including Bill Clinton. Nobody seems to have fallen for whatever it is that he was selling. But let's have a look at America. Donald Trump yesterday in what can only be described as a kind of slightly odd press conference. We're not quite sure why. We'll maybe explore it later on in the show. But here's Donald Trump telling people why paracetamol shouldn't be taken by pregnant women.
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol during pregnancy, can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary. That's, for instance, in cases of extremely high fever, that you feel you can't tough it out, you can't do it. I guess there's that.
I mean, the front page of Telegraph, Peter, says Donald Trump has hailed an amazing new drug that could be used to treat autism. So he suggested a different drug, which is called leucovorin, typically used in cancer treatment to counter the side effects of other drugs, could be an answer to the autism condition. I'm not quite sure why he's come out and said this now. I don't know whether there's any scientific proof to it. You know, front page of the Times says pregnant women have been told in this country paracetamol is safe after US warning. So it's a weird story, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a clear and unequivocal statement here in that article from the Times, which was issued by the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency.
Yeah.
So it's the United Kingdom's medicines watchdog. And in response to that, those comments from Donald Trump, this watchdog said, there is no evidence that taking paracetamol during pregnancy causes autism in children.
Right.
So that flies very much in the face of what Donald Trump said. It is my understanding, although of course I have zero medical qualifications, that fever in pregnant women can be potentially damaging to a fetus. So I would urge anybody who's pregnant and is contemplating taking paracetamol to either take the clear advice of the agency or contact a medical professional.
I mean, some people in this country are saying it's all a bit fear-mongering in the US over the link between paracetamol use and autism. Dr. Alison Cave, Chief Safety Officer at the MHRA, says patient safety is our top priority. There is no evidence that taking paracetamol during pregnancy causes autism in children. But it's one of those stories that will worry people, isn't it? Because when the President of the United States of America comes out and says we're going to tell the FDA that this is not going to be a recommendation that we're going to make, people will take that seriously.
Yeah,
I have no way of knowing whether it's safe or not. RFK Jr., who of course is the kind of the health advocate over in the US in the government, had this to say:
research has revealed that folate deficiency in a child's brain can lead to autism. We have also identified an exciting therapy that may benefit large numbers of children who suffer from autism. Peer-reviewed literature has documented that up to 60% of folate-deficient children with ASD can have improved verbal communications if given leucovorin.
I mean, he's not the guy you'd want to be talking about improved verbal communication, really, is he? I don't wish to be unkind.
No, it is an unfortunate affliction that he's got.
Yeah, he had a worm in his brain, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah.
Did he really? Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway. Here's Caroline Levitt, who is, of course, the White House press spokesperson on prescribing Antifa. That's not prescribing, that's proscribing.
Antifa is going to be designated a domestic terrorist organization. The president intends to sign that executive order very soon as it's drafted, as soon as today, later this afternoon. And this is something the president campaigned on because we have seen a rise in violence perpetuated by Antifa radical people across this country who subscribe to this group. And unfortunately, it's gone widely uncovered by many in the legacy media. It also went completely ignored by the previous administration. Not anymore.
So that's a good move, I think, isn't it?
This young woman is a communications powerhouse.
Isn't she brilliant?
She's astonishing.
Yeah.
And I've seen her absolutely rinse journalists when they've asked daft questions.
Right.
And her organisational skills, when she says jump, people say how high.
And she's also on top of every single question she gets asked. She doesn't, she just bats everything away, she deals with it. You know, she knows she's got so much going on, and yet she seems to always be on top of it.
An extremely capable young lady.
Yeah, brilliant.
And yeah, Antifa, well, if they get prescribed in in America, that will be very, very interesting indeed. Because, of course...
These are the people that turn up with sort of baseball bats and masked, thugs.
The anti-fascists.
Yeah, the anti-fascists. The people who turn up sometimes, in a slightly lesser form, at some of these migrant protests here in the UK.
But there's a relevance here, a very recent relevance to matters in the UK. Let's remember, on the 5th of July, this government prescribed Palestine action.
Yes.
OK, not long after that, there was 500 of them arrested in Parliament Square.
Yeah.
And well done to the Met Police for that. Then a couple of weeks later, 900 were arrested. OK, I mean, astonishing operation just to do that, to deal with those kind of numbers and arrest and process those kind of people. You know, I'm swift to chide the police when they get it wrong.
Sure.
But on that occasion, I think the Met Police deserve considerable credit. But is that linked to what Starmer has done by recognising the state of Palestine?
Well,
I think so.
Yes.
We know he's doing it to appease the far left wing of his party.
Yeah.
I think he's doing it to appease those people in the hope that it will stop them flocking to Parliament Square, sitting on the ground with their banners and their...
But it won't, will it?
Well, we shall have to wait and see, won't we? Because I'm sure the Met have had a whisper in the Home Secretary's ear about this, saying it's not sustainable. We can't do it forever, possibly. We'll have to wait and see. I think
and there's also, I think, a legal challenge going through the courts as well, isn't there? Where the lawyers have taken up their case and said, what you shouldn't have done was make them a criminal organisation.
Yeah.
Because that's not going to work. But, you know, as you say, it's all mired in madness. Let's have a look at a story from Bristol City Council, which is in the Telegraph. You probably would expect Bristol City Council to be quite left-wing, because they are.
Yeah.
They've been accused of virtue signalling madness because they want to replace sex-based terms with gender-neutral language, including legally defining sex as biological, misgender, trans people. Right? They also say they want to do away with the word maternity, because they prefer to replace it with paternity, which is actually incorrect. They want to demand support for biological men who want to chest feed babies, right? And they also want you to stop calling people pregnant. They want you to call them people with ovaries.
I'm just aghast. And I'll tell you what really irritates me about all this absolute wokery nonsense is that somebody is being paid out of the public purse to come up with this nonsense. They will be a public employee, so they'll work for the council.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what their salary is.
Yeah.
Because...
Would be reasonable, I bet.
Yeah, because the people of Bristol, or maybe even us, are paying for that through taxes, whether they be national or local. Someone's being paid to come up with such utter drivel.
Nonsense. Exactly right. It's absolutely ridiculous. Completely mad. But Bristol City Council, you would be expected to get that from them. Here's another one for you. This is in The Sun, page 11. The Ghost of Christmas Farce. A stage adaptation of A Christmas Carol has got a woke trigger warning saying that it features ghosts and themes of poverty.
I mean, really?
I mean, well, it would, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Worried theatre bosses also warned the festive classic tackles isolation, social responsibility, greed and death.
There's some irony here, because the article's written by a man called Richard Moriarty, right? Okay, which is surely not lost on anybody.
No.
Shouldn't his name title come with a trigger warning?
He might have to change it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right.
It's just absolute, utter garbage. I had the great pleasure of being taken on my birthday a couple of years ago to watch the Royal Shakespeare Company do it in at Stratford, and it was absolutely brilliant. And guess what?
It's a fantastic play, isn't it, Christmas Carol?
Yeah, Dickens. I mean, Dickens, he's just an absolute joy of the world, wasn't he, Charles Dickens? And for this, hell in a handcart. Are we all going there? Are we all heading in the same direction?
Well, you won't be wanting to go to Wetherspoons in Surrey Quays on your way there, because on page 23 of The Sun, this actually started, because I started reporting on this back in the days of COVID. This started in COVID times, when all the kind of millennials and the Gen Zers and the Gen Xers, whatever they are, couldn't stand at a bar and order a drink. So they all had to stand behind each other in a queue, forming themselves 1 metre apart so that they didn't actually upset anybody. Apparently Wetherspoons has now actually made it official. Gen Z drinkers are told to form an orderly queue, just like in a coffee shop. I wouldn't drink at a place like that.
Weatherspoons are largely to blame for this in the first place because, sadly, the role of barman, barmaid, whatever they get called these days, a quality bar person,
bar steward.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, met a few of them in my time. Right, a proper landlord or landlady or member of bar staff who runs a pub actually doesn't need people to queue because they've got their wits about them and they know who's going to be served next. Right. They know it because they know who came in, who's in front, whether they're standing to the right, to the left, wherever they're standing. They know. But because the role of bar staff has been demeaned over the years, it's become downtrodden, the wages are suppressed, they don't get paid what they should do, okay? People are just robotic. They just serve pints now and hand them over. You don't get that little bit of chat with a bartender. You know, so many pubs, free houses have all disappeared. They're essentially managed houses where people have not got an investment in making that pub profitable. And this is part of, generally speaking, the downturn in service in pubs.
You know, I was in a pub not far from here a few months ago, just across the street, and there was a whole bunch of us. And we were celebrating somebody's birthday, I can't remember. Anyway, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, people were starting to come in from work, and the bartender, who was a bit chippy, at one point said to me, "Would you mind moving away from the bar?" I said, "Yeah, I would mind moving away from the bar. I'm standing at the bar. That's where I'm standing." And he's like, "Well, you're not supposed to stand there, you're in the way." I said, well, a guy's coming from behind me, he can reach around me and get a drink that way. That's what we do. That's what you call standing at the bar.
Are you familiar with the expression, young man, propping up the bar?
Yeah, which I've done for many a year.
Indeed,
in
likewise.
all sorts of cities around the world.
Yes.
You know, in fact, I don't like sitting down when I drink, so I like to prop up the bar. It's where I like to be. And this, I mean, in the end, he gave up because we were just like, we're not moving, mate. Don't get, you know, monkeys, what you think I'm going to do. And I'm not moving.
Again, you see, it's a decline in the standards of bar staff, unfortunately, which is going to lead to people queuing. So what happens when the queue's really long? You're going to stand outside the pub.
That's what I used to do in COVID. They used to go snaking around the block. It's unbelievable. Anyway, let's get a voice note. We're running late. Steve, on the runway at Gatwick.
Steve from Barnsley. Labour trying to make it look like they're doing things now in a good way. Runway at Gatwick. Why do they not dedicate this runway at Gatwick for the migrant planes out of the UK? Then they will be hitting two birds with one stone, because they will be looking good in the public eye, but also the green factor, as that runway will never get used. What a set of plonkers.
Yeah, I'm afraid Steve absolutely nailed it there. It's horrendous. We've got one more break to do, haven't we? Oh, we better do it. So we're nearly out of time. Peter, we'll be back in a moment with another story about how you're going to put rainwater in your toilet. This is Talk.
possibly has spooked him completely into this precipitate action was Emmanuel Macron, the French president, saying that he was going to do this. And I think that probably Sir Keir Starmer thought, well, I'm going to be left, looking even more weak I'm going to be in an even weaker position in terms of these people who want my head if I don't go along with this. Plus, I'm afraid to say, I think that Starmer himself, he's obsessed by what he calls the two-state solution.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to very nearly 7 o'clock. We've got about a minute left, Peter Blexley.
Yes.
And I've got to do this one for you. This is about suggestions that campaigners and house builders should be making it possible for you to use rainwater to flush your toilet, because it would be more environmentally friendly and it could save you 100 quid a year.
Well, I'm going to get in front of the house builders. I'm going to start collecting rainwater, and I will flush my toilet with it under one condition. That I can flush the government's entire net zero policy down the toilet with it.
With it, yes.
In that case, I'd be very happy to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, they talk about saving water as if it doesn't all leak into the ground, which is what it mostly does.
Yeah.
If they could stop it doing that, we wouldn't have any problem.
We had a letter from Thames Water last week.
Oh, yeah.
Our water bill is, wait for it, doubling.
Ridiculous. Absolutely shocking. We'll talk some more about the water scenario. Thank you, Peter Blexley. Great to see you. We're coming up with a load more stories. We're going to play you a little Kamala Harris extract from her new book as well. That'll be fun. This is Morning Glory. See you in a minute.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 4 minutes past 7. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock this morning. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be finding out what the big political stories are of the day. Sunil Sharma joins us, political commentator, host of the Rational Voices with Sunil. We'll be asking him about the latest problems for Keir Starmer this morning. Obviously, he's still, unfortunately, reeling from that ludicrous decision he made at the weekend to recognise Palestine. This morning, he's asking Palestinians in the Palestinian Authority to stop rewarding those who kill Israelis and who get themselves martyred for the cause of Palestine because he thinks it's a bit of a bad look. Well, perhaps he should have thought about that before he decided to recognise them as a state in the first place. By the way, apparently they've already been raising the flag above the embassy of Palestine in London. So if they already had an embassy here, how is that changed by them being recognised as a state which doesn't really exist? Very bizarre situation. We're going to talk as well about Nigel Farage's plan to reduce the number of people coming here from foreign countries claiming benefits. He says we're not the world's food bank. He's got a plan to force an awful lot of migrants out of the country. A lot of people getting their knickers in a twist about it, as you might expect. Oh, but we're supposed to be a welcoming country. Well, up to a point. 3.8 million people came here after Boris Johnson declared that we would have more immigration because it was good for the country post-Brexit. And they haven't left. And so there's an awful lot of them with dependent members of families, an awful lot of them taking an awful lot of money out of the public sector. And apparently £230 billion is what Nigel Farage says he will save for the British people. An awful lot of you this morning very much in support of that. We'll be talking as well about Donald Trump. He's hailing a new autism drug, but he's also being attacked over fearmongering around Tylenol, as they call it in America, Paracetamol, as they call it in this country. UK experts saying there's fearmongering going on in the US over the link between paracetamol and autism, and they say there isn't any evidence for it. Well, we'll be talking to a few people around and about the expertise of that, and we'll find out exactly what's going on. Meanwhile, a couple of other stories for you. Ed Miliband, notwithstanding his allowing the second runway to be taking up in Gatwick, he says he's going to sort of do away with local opposition to nuclear waste dumps in the English countryside. He doesn't think there's any point in asking locals whether they mind if there's a nuclear waste dump near where they live. He says we'll just ride roughshod over that. We'll have a review and we'll scrap the need for public votes altogether. So you could wake up one morning and there's a nuclear waste dump next door to you. Marvellous, isn't it? Fantastic. 0344 499 1000. Also, a couple of other stories. Fergie facing the end. Duchess of York was dropped by 7 separate charities yesterday as a result of her ghastly, crawling, creepy letters to Jeffrey Epstein, the paedophile, after he had been found guilty and had served time for soliciting teenagers for sex. She said he was her fantastic, most supreme friend. Absolutely unbelievable. Also, they wanted to use rainwater to flush your loo. Brilliant. 0344 499 1000. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Now, let's talk a little bit about reform. Morning, Mike. Watched the reform press conference yesterday. I get why Farage is there, but why isn't Tice and why is Yusuf? I thought he was Doge, nothing to do with immigration policy. Immigration or policy, says David. Well, I think it's everything to do with the financial side of whatever reform are doing because of his expertise in finance, and I think that's why Nigel Farage likes to have him around. Morning, Mike, and the Morning Glory team, says Marco in Swindon. Nigel Farage is absolutely correct. We are not the world's food bank, and we shouldn't be feeding half of the third world in this country because we're all suffering for it. Well, I think that's the point that he's trying to make. So we'll be talking about that in a moment. Just before we do anything, though, let's remember who Kamala Harris was. You might remember that, this was the woman that the Democrats thought was the answer when Joe Biden decided not to run for president last year, and instead we ended up getting Donald Trump, thank God. Here she is reading an extract from her book, which is called 107 Days.
Now the dining room table was strewn with scrawled notes, sandwich crusts, and the greasy remains of a pizza with anchovies. My favorite, no one else's. I was still in my workout clothes, my unbrushed hair tangled in its scrunchie. Despite that, I decided we needed to record the moment. Before I went upstairs to take a long overdue shower, I gathered my team. Things are gonna get wild.
Yeah. It's not exactly Jane Austen, is it? 107 days, of course, was the number of days that Joe Biden took. He withdrew his candidacy just 107 days before the election. This was after, of course, everybody said he was absolutely fine, including Keir Starmer. Do you remember Keir Starmer went to see him in the midst of his so-called campaign? And people said, you know, how did you find the president? Absolutely at his finest, absolutely tip-top, brilliant, very sharp, absolutely fantastic. He's going to make a great president. And about 2 days later, he said he wasn't going to run anymore because he was not feeling very well. So another triumph from Keir Starmer. Hard to imagine that could have all happened and it could have all gone horribly wrong. Can you imagine if Kamala Harris was the president of the United States of America? Let's talk to Sunil Sharma, the political commentator, host of the Rational Voices with Sunil. Sunil, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Another bad week for Keir Starmer. He's this morning asking people in Palestine to stop killing Israelis and to stop rewarding people for killing Israelis. You think he might have thought about that before he granted them nation status?
I mean, if Keir Starmer cared about the UK half as much as he cares about Palestine, I think we would have our golden age right now. I mean, he's obsessed with talking about international matters that do absolutely nothing to the United Kingdom. And to think that he thinks, or his government think, that his words have any kind of weight in the international settings is embarrassing. I don't think anyone really seriously looks at the UK with him as a leader and him making any announcements of any countries very seriously. I think the more depressing and worrying thing is what that'll mean for the UK in terms of we're already seeing that, you know, putting up a Union Jack flag is far right. I expect the amount of Palestine flags to basically triple now in the UK. And I think it sets like a dangerous precedent, because what about Kosovo? What about Taiwan? What about there's so many examples of this where the question marks about when you're declaring another country its own sovereign state. So to me, it's a really bizarre to see him do that to record that video and him to talk so much about Palestine.
Yeah.
Why won't you talk about United Kingdom? Why won't you talk about the mess that's going on in this country?
Well, exactly right. And I think Donald Trump later on today is going to react to this kind of outpouring of recognition. President Macron did it in France yesterday. You know, Portugal have done it. Loads of other countries have done it. But it's mostly these kind of woke leaders like Mark Carney in Canada. And it appears to make really no difference at all, other than encouraging Hamas to say that they believe that they've won a great victory, because before October the 7th of 2023, nobody was recognising them as a state, and now everybody is.
But you look at all those countries you just named there, and all the ones that have come out and recognise Palestine, all of them are failing countries, all of them are failing economies, all of them are failing on mass migration. All of those countries are in decline in respect to the rest of the world, and it just why they're in decline. The focus on other countries on issues that they don't fully understand. That I don't think anyone, you know, this is a conflict that's gone on for centuries and probably will carry on, unfortunately, for long periods of time. But these countries are almost trying to hide behind their own country, their own issues in their own countries by focusing outside. And I think it's really sad. And if they haven't learned from this this globalist focus, there just doesn't seem to be any kind of recognition that this is not what the public want. This is not what the public cares about. But maybe in their small bubbles and their small circles, they see this as a really, really big issue for them. But the reality is France, Canada, UK, the leaders of these countries don't have the best interests of their own people. And I think that's right.
No, and there's no question, is there, that some of the problems that are facing all of those same countries because of the fact that they're reacting to a particular kind of a portion of their supporters, shall we say, have that portion of supporters, not because they're all flaming lefties, but because quite often they've got people in the country who have come from Palestine or who have come from Palestinian supporting countries to live here and who are now pressurising the government to do their will, effectively.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, the questions, you know, I heard that something talking about Nigel Farage and his plans to, stop the impacts on mass migration. These are conversations that we should be having. These are conversations we should be really talking about the economic impacts that illegal immigration has had, then the economic impacts of legal immigration. We should be having serious conversations about how do we close our borders quicker? Why has our numbers changed the way they have? What impact has that had to communities? You know, these are the serious conversations we should be having as a country. We should not be getting involved in international matters. I just can't for a second really believe that Keir Starmer has any understanding of what's going on in that region or what goes on a day-to-day basis. And I think he doesn't know what goes on in his own in his own backyard. What makes anyone think that he knows what goes on outside? And I think that's the concerning thing. There are some serious issues, again, when we particularly talk about mass migration, and these are questions that we should be discussing and debating about.
Yeah, well, we'll come back to what Nigel Farage was saying yesterday about how he wants to save £230 billion off the top of the public purse because of all of the money that's going out in benefits to foreign nationals and people who've come here from abroad. But let's just move, before we do that, to this story about Keir Starmer and his controversial Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney. This is a story that's not going away. He's been accused of breaking Commons rules over his relationship, the code of conduct in terms of their past support, getting Labour Together's think tank money, which has disappeared and not been accounted for. You know, this was a story that was broken over the weekend in the Mail on Sunday. Labour Together basically somehow hid more than £700,000 in donations while they were trying to build up Keir Starmer so that he could take over from Jeremy Corbyn. And it's a very, very murky-looking story, this, to me.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be too surprised. I think what makes it so much worse for Sir Keir Starmer and anyone in that Labour government is the way they attacked Boris Johnson, the way they attacked even people like Jeremy Hunt throughout the last 10, 15 years. This kind of one rule for them, one rule for us, when all along they've been playing, well, it looks like to me, the exact same game. And I think that's what makes it even the situation so much more worse, because they have literally said so much things about this sort of murky behaviour, you know, the getting rid of the sleeves in 10 Downing Street, when they've just replaced sleeves with even more sleeves. And I think it's really I just with Keir Starmer, maybe I just don't see him having the knowledge or the capacity to really be able to play this sort of game of hiding donations and all this sort of stuff. I'm sure it's other people within that party, within his team, within his profile, because when I look at that man and I see him on the international stage, I see nothing. So I find it hard to believe that he's necessarily done it.
He may not be clever enough to be the man that orchestrated it, but he was certainly the beneficiary of it, you know, and therefore, you know, they all have to, I'm afraid, sup from the same bowl, if you like, you know, and it may well be that they keep things from Starmer because he's too stupid to understand it. However, he was the beneficiary of, and £700,000 is an awful lot of money.
Definitely. I mean, again, it raises the questions. You know, these are the exact same questions that Sir Keir Starmer and his Labour cabinet were badgering the Tories for how many years about donations, about where does the money come from, all this sort of stuff. They were the ones who really, really set that whole one rule for them, one rule for us, that kind of mentality, and they've been doing it all along. And I think that kind of sums up the hypocrisy. It sums up the state of the Labour Party right now. And I think that's why we're talking so much about Nigel Farage and everyone else, is because there is a real appetite for something different. These people, in my opinion, do not serve the interests of the UK. They serve the globalists, they serve the elites, they serve their paymasters at Brussels. Far happier, helping Brussels than he is Britain, and I don't think that's a remotely controversial thing to say.
I don't think so at all. Let's have a look at what Nigel Farage said about scrapping indefinite leave to remain yesterday. We'll get that for you in a moment, because he says that he can save £230 billion, right, as a result of taking these people out of that particular category, right? Let's have a look.
We will abolish indefinite leave to remain as a category in this country. The 800,000 people that will get indefinite leave to remain unless this policy is revoked tend to be young, tend to be low-skilled. They are going to be a huge burden on the state. What we do know is that 1 in 6 claimants of universal credit alone today, 1 in 6 is a foreign-born national.
And when you think of the numbers of people in the population as a whole, 1 in 6 is a massive number, isn't it? Because that would be, if you were, going to extrapolate that into the numbers, say, for example, in the country, you'd be looking at 10 million plus people who are from foreign countries claiming universal credit.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, I think something has to be done, and it needs to be radical, because the reality is, you look at the numbers in the UK when it comes to mass migration, how much it's changed in the last 10, 20 years. It is astronomical. It's not sustainable, and I think there needs to be serious change. And I think something like this is a step in the right direction. You've got to remember, we've moved away from 60s and the 70s and 80s where mass migration was around 10, 20,000. We're now talking hundreds of thousands, and I think that is an unsustainable amount of people. It's changing the culture. is changing the fabric of this country. And I think if you can find ways or measures to remove people the quickest and succinct way, then I think that should be something that we should really be applauding. There are more than 5 million people in the UK that are economically inactive. These are people who are not even looking for jobs, they're not on the unemployment rate, which I think Sir Keir Starmer loves to talk about, but the reality is there's 5 million people who are, more than 5 million people who are economically inactive. They should be the focus. We should be looking to get those people into the workforce. These are British-born people who are not working, and we need to be getting those people to be working rather than spending the amount of money we spend on, in particular, illegal migrants, but even some of the indefinite remain. These are loopholes that need to be closed.
Right. Because obviously the other main overarching conversation is about the fact that this country is pretty much out of money. You know, we've got Rachel Reeves talking about possibly having to raise income tax by 2p, the Resolution Foundation making recommendations to her to fill the budget black hole by just going after people, people's pensions, people's income, people's wages, you know, people who are not employees, which is an awful lot of people in this country who are self-employed, who are, you know, entrepreneurs, who are landlords, people who generate an awful lot of money for this country and who generate an awful lot of tax for this country. The Labour answer is simply to tax them more.
Well, the few that are left are going to keep on leaving with what she's doing. If you're a budding entrepreneur, unfortunately, I don't see why you would want to start your business in the UK with this current government and this current climate of what they're doing. And I think, you know, we talk about the financial repercussions. This immigration, why it's such a big subject, is because it affects every single aspect of what's going on in the UK. You take prisons, you know, more than 10,000 are foreign criminals in our prisons, and that's more than 10% of people that are in prison are from foreign nationals. How easy would it be to just deport those people straight away? We keep talking about the UK has a prison crisis and that they are under-resourced, they've got all sorts of issues. You remove those 10,000 people straight off the bat, that is a massive relief on prisons. You can go to any aspect of what's going on right now in the United Kingdom and there is some link to mass migration, and that's just the reality. It's not like I say, I think people are the few that don't quite get this, the circumstances from 20, 30, 40 years ago is completely different to now. We don't have labour shortages, we have the opposite problem where we don't actually have enough people in the labour workforce, and unfortunately a massive reason for that is mass migration, is those people accepting extremely low wages when the normal average working Brit can't get a job, they can't get a house. It's a terrible situation, and I think this Labour Party unfortunately just doesn't seem to understand this. It rather prioritises the impacts of people foreign to the country than the people actually in the country who are born and bred in this country, and I think that's really, really depressing, and that's why I think Farage's ideas here are a really big, good step in the right direction.
Yeah, and that's why people are frightened of it, because it looks like it's going to be as popular as every other policy that he's come out with. Sunil, thanks very much indeed. Sunil Sharma. Let's get a voice note from Mark.
Yeah, good morning. It's Mark in Lancashire. Finally, we're getting people saying they're going to do things to fix the country, do things about immigration. This is what we need. I'm sick of lefties saying that it's all populism. You can't do this, you can't do that. And all we've got is stagnation and nothing happening while everything's just getting worse. And things can be done. We've seen Javier Milei in Argentina took the country from an absolute basket case to 7% GDP growth last year. And he did it by slashing and burning, throwing out all the waste. That's what he's done. Nayib Bukele, down in South America also, I think that's El Salvador, turning it from a crime-riddled murder haven to one of the safest countries in the world. People said it couldn't be done. Trump deported a few million. Now he's got zero illegal immigration. This is what we need to happen. People doing things. It's not populism. It's common sense. It can be done with the political will.
Yeah, absolutely right. Mark, thank you very much indeed. Mark, very much speaking for the nation there. An awful lot of people would agree with him that, yeah, enough is enough, basically. You know, we're running out of money. You can't just keep handing money out to people and expect there to be anything good that comes from it. At the end of the day, the people who make the money, who generate the tax, can't keep being squeezed for more tax so that you can give more free money to other people, whether they're coming into the country or whether they're already here. It doesn't work. 0344 499 1000 is the number. Coming up, we'll talk to Alex Wilson. Angela Levin's going to be here as well to talk about Fergie, the Duchess of York. On the subject of water, Sean from Briggerton says, I've got a brilliant idea, revolutionary, about rainwater. How about the water companies collect it, store it, and then supply it to homes through a network of pipes? Am I a genius or what? Yeah, good idea, that. What, you mean pipes that don't leak? pipes that actually carry the water from point A to point B without dropping any of it. That sort of pipe. Morning, Mike. Now they want us to use rainwater to flush our loos, says Susan in Worthing. These nut-zero raving lunatics won't be happy until we're living in mud huts with holes in the ground to squat over and a horse and cart outside. It's true. They actually want that. They literally do. Coming up, we're going to talk about Sadiq Khan. He closed down Oxford Street the other day to pedestrianise it. He loved that. Absolutely loved it. We'll tell you why. 7:24.
What possibly has spooked him completely into this precipitate action was Emmanuel Macron, the French president, saying that he was going to do this. And I think that probably Sir Keir Starmer thought, well, I'm going to be left, looking even more weak or I'm going to be in an even weaker position in terms of these people who want my head if I don't go along with this. Plus, I'm afraid to say, I think that Starmer himself, he's obsessed by what he calls the two-state solution.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. This from Ralph, who says, can you imagine Starmer as Prime Minister of the Iranian embassy siege in 1980 or making life decisions at the Falklands conflict in 1982? It doesn't bear thinking about. Starmer is taking us in a very dangerous place. Absolutely right. Let's get a voice note from Tony.
Good morning, Michael. Great show as usual. Here's a big one for you this morning. It's a big sigh as soon as I hear you mention Bristol City Council. Honestly, mate, we've had enough. I'm from Bristol originally. I live on the outskirts now. The city is dying on its backside, as they say. Please, if you get Nigel Farage on your show, or Richard Tice, please get them to send someone from Reform to Bristol. It needs change. After all these years, it needs rescuing. Keep up the good work.
Good to hear from you, Tony. Yeah, Bristol definitely does need rescuing. It's one of the hotbeds, isn't it, of leftyism. It was Brighton first, and now Bristol have got the Greens there. They've got a couple of Green MPs knocking around. It really is a dreadful, dreadful state of affairs. And now they wanted to stop calling people women pregnant. They want to call them people with ovaries, right? And they want to call breastfeeding chest feeding, and they want to call maternity paternity. The whole thing is a complete and utter nonsense. Farrago of rubbish, quite frankly. But never mind. Let's talk to Alex Wilson now, Reform UK's London Assembly member. We've got our own version of lefties in the London Assembly, of course, run by Sadiq Khan. Alex, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to see you. We'll talk in a second about Nigel Farage's press conference yesterday, but I wanted to ask you about Oxford Street, because I noticed that at the weekend Sadiq Khan decided to make Oxford Street pedestrianised to see whether people would like it better. And one of the things I noticed, because I go there quite a lot, is that before this experiment, there were basically quite a lot of Union Jacks being flown up and down Oxford Street. You know, the three big sort of flags on every flag poles or every, and you know, the traffic light and all the rest of it. And they were all up and down the street. And now they've all been replaced by pictures or by different banners which say the Mayor of London, Oxford Street is for everyone, or something like that. And most of the Union Jacks have been removed.
Yeah, well, any opportunity for a bit of propaganda from the mayor, and he'll take it. That's what he does. But the important thing about Oxford Street is it's Britain's high street. It's, you know, a showcase for the world. You know, Londoners use it frequently. Tourists use it all the time. It's a really important shopping destination for London, and by extension for for the UK economy, and it needs to be accessible. And what he's planning to do, so the thing on Sunday was basically a trial run, right, effectively for what he's wanting to do on a long-term basis, which is ban traffic from it and make it entirely pedestrianised. At the moment, during the day, the only traffic that uses it are buses and taxis.
I was going to say, there's not much traffic in there anyway.
Yeah, there isn't ordinary motorist footfall coming through normally. So the only traffic that uses it during peak hours, or during the daytime hours rather, is traffic that is bringing people to shop and taking people away. And if you're going shopping physically, you need to be able to carry stuff onto your mode of transport that you're then getting home with. And the buses and taxis, and taxis being the only 100% accessible for more elderly and perhaps disabled residents and shoppers, by banning all that, it's going to make it harder for people to come there. It's also going to make it harder for deliveries, physical deliveries of items to these shops. And the other question that's never been answered during all these talks over the last 20 years or so about potential pedestrianisation of Oxford Street is, where are you actually going to divert that traffic to? We had a few meetings at the Assembly looking at this, and we went on a site visit, and we looked at the neighbouring roads and trying to understand how is this going to impact all that. And a lot of us thought, actually, this isn't a great idea. It's not going to bring people in. It's going to make it harder for people to get there, and it's going to have a knock-on effect on the residents of the nearby roads. And some of the local residents groups spoke to the committee and gave their concerns. But of course, the mayor ignores all that. Yeah. He ignored the views of Westminster City Council, a Labour council, the same party as him, who had their own plans shovel-ready, ready to go for doing various improvements and streetworks and so on, which wouldn't have included pedestrianisation. But no, he ran roughshod over all of that, as he always does, because any kind of exercise where he asks for people's views, he always, at the end of it, he says, well, it's a consultation, not a referendum. So whatever people actually say to him, if they take a different view to him, he's not interested. He does his own thing anyway. Yeah, consultation in his view means, if you agree with me, I'll count your vote, and if you don't, I'll just ignore it. Extraordinary stuff. Yep. Let's just have a quick chat about Nigel Farage's press conference yesterday. A lot of coverage this morning, of course, in the papers. Front page of the Telegraph says that Nigel Farage and Reform UK faces a showdown with the EU over the massive cuts he's planned to welfare spending. But a couple of questions that I've got for you here, because a couple of people have sent me messages on this, right? Kevin said this: my father-in-law was granted indefinite leave to remain 20 years ago. On the paperwork, it clearly said no recourse to public funds. So how did that change so that people can now access universal credit and whatever? And another one here from someone who doesn't give a name: I agree that something needs to be done about immigration, but it would affect a lot of hard-working people. My wife has indefinite leave to remain. She's Polish. She has always worked and she has always paid in. So I guess there's, obviously it's not as a broad brush stroke that everybody with indefinite leave to remain gets kicked out of the country. But how would that work exactly? Well, those are really important questions to be asked, and we started the debate by launching another big, bold policy yesterday. Yeah. What the thrust of what we're talking about is focused on, it's about this Boris wave of people who've come since the referendum, since Boris was Prime Minister, 3.8 million people, of which on kind of historic trends we would expect up to 1 million to then qualify for indefinite leave to remain, and with that have access to all the benefits and you know, health and social care and all those things that they would then get access to, costing us, the British taxpayer, an absolute fortune.
Right.
So it's about stopping that process. And if you want to come here legally, that's absolutely great. But you come here legally, you work, you contribute, you speak English, you don't commit crimes, then you're very welcome, as you'd always have been, you know, with proper work visas that be renewable after every 5 years. So yeah, if you're here to contribute, here to work, here to take part in our society, in our economy, and add genuine value and expertise to what we're doing as a country, you will continue to be welcome, as you always have been. What this is about is clamping down on those who want to come here, get on the teat of the public spending, and not make that contribution back in return. That's what this is about. So people who are here working hard and earning decent money and contributing, they will always be welcome, as they have been forever.
Well, that's good to point out, because I think that will put a lot of people's, assuage a lot of people's worries, because I think some people, as soon as they see there's mass deportations coming, they suddenly think, am I going to be deported, or is my dad going to be deported, or my wife going to be deported? But I think it's important that you guys make that point, and I know that Nigel did yesterday, but, there's the usual, kicking and screaming of the media who are always looking to go, but we're such a welcoming country, we have to let everybody in. Well, you can't let everybody in. We're already looking at situations where the income tax might have to go up by 2p in the pound, according to Rachel Reeves, in order to cover this black hole. If you could reduce the numbers of people on benefits, clearly that's a better step in the right direction, isn't it?
Absolutely. Now, as a country, we are on the verge of bankruptcy. We've had this Labour government only in for a year and a half, and yet all they've managed to do is tax and spend and borrow and cause the economy to go into nosedive.
Yeah.
And the budget that's going to be coming up, what their answer is going to be is more tax and more borrowing and more economic doom and gloom, because they don't understand what actually motivates an economy to work, about creating that dynamic private sector which can generate that wealth that you can then use to fund the public services that we all rely on. We've had stagnant growth since the economy. We have since the budget last year. Every month has seen a fall in or a rise in unemployment, and a fall in jobs available for people, and it's we're in a doom loop, and something's got to be done to get out of that. And a big part of that is we've got to get on top of public spending generally, and a big area of public spending to get on top of is the welfare budget. Part of that is what we're looking at with this particular policy, trying to reduce the amount that is spent on foreign-born citizens coming here and taking the benefits. So 1 in 6 people on universal credit currently are foreign nationals, and that included the spending of about £9 billion last year. That's money that we simply haven't got. So part of it, clamping down on welfare tourism, getting grip of that, but also just generally getting the economy moving. So being in a position where you can cut tax rates, stimulate growth, and improve the overall tax revenue as you have a growing, vibrant economy. That's something that the Conservatives used to believe in. It's what they did in the 80s. It's what Reform believes in now, but it's certainly the opposite of what the Labour government is doing. And the reason why the Labour government is doing so badly on the economy is because none of that front bench have ever set up a business, taken those risks, had to employ people, had to sack people, had to make sure that the money was coming in, they're generating something of value. They just don't understand it, and that's why they're causing such damage. And it's going to be a long 3 years until the next general election, but the more of this goes on, the more we'll be fighting hard to get them out of office, because Britain needs change, Britain needs reform.
It might need less time than 3 years. We'll see how it goes. Alex, good to talk to you. Thank you. Alex Wilson, Reform UK's London Assembly member. Joanne says this in Somerset: Conservatives were also bad for immigration, but I never once felt they came before the British. It now seems we have a Prime Minister that hates Britain and British people. I think that's right. Let's get a voice note from Luke on rainwater.
Luke from Salisbury. So if I need to collect rainwater to flush my toilet, does that mean I need to take all my laundry down to the river so I can wash it down there as well?
Well, you could do. It'd be like the Ganges, wouldn't it? You just take all your stuff down. Get in the river as well and wash yourself. I mean, trouble is, it's not that easy in some parts of Britain to do that. This one from Mary in Kent. I agree 100% with what Nigel Farage said yesterday. We have too many people on benefits from foreign countries, including our own. I know of so many young men in my own family circle that ranges from the age of 19 to 35 that choose to stay on benefits. Some of them have managed to get PIP for mental health problems, and they'd rather go to the gym or smoke weed in their bedroom than get a job. My son has autism, and he is holding down not one but 2 little jobs. I'm so proud of him. These same family members tell me I'm stupid for allowing him to work work as he would get more money being on the dole. Well, this is part of the problem, isn't it? And it's not just, obviously, a problem of immigration, but the whole welfare bill is too big and unaffordable, and so something has to be done. So the idea that you can cut down on immigration and you can cut down on welfare, but the two things somehow never meet in the middle, is nonsensical. We'll talk about that coming up in the next hour, obviously. Meanwhile, coming next, Angela Levin joins us, royal commentator, because we want to find out from her whether this is the end of the road for Fergie. Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:41. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Mike, I love your show. Now that Starmer has recognised Palestine as a state, do we have to have a Palestinian embassy? Well, the weird thing about it, Deanne, is that there already is a Palestinian embassy because they were already celebrating last night in London at the Palestinian embassy. So it's rather weird, isn't it? Sharon says, morning, Mike. It's about time that Fergie's been found out. She continues to exploit the royal family. I can't understand why Charles has got her living on the Windsor estate at the cost of taxpayers, says Sharon from Staffordshire. Well, we've got just the person to ask about that. And it is, of course, Angela Levin, royal biographer. Front page of the Daily Mail today. Will the King now banish Fergie after she was dumped by 7 separate charities yesterday over emails that were discovered that she'd sent to the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein? Angela, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good to see you. This is a pretty bad day for Fergie, isn't it? I mean, after all of the various scandals she's been involved in, going all the way back to Johnny Bryan and the toe-sucking and all the rest of it with Prince Andrew and the divorce and everything else that's been going on. I mean, this is about as bad as it gets, isn't it?
Yeah, it's worse than as bad as it gets. It's shocking, actually. When you read what's happened, it turns your stomach because one time she says, "Oh, I really, you're the best friend." What is it? You know,
supreme
you're
friend
to me. Thank you very much. Steadfast, generous, and supreme friend. And that's just a little bit after she said she would have no more contact with him. So that's the worst thing, isn't it? When you actually know you're doing completely wrong.
Yeah.
And especially that she's done a lot of work with children and things like that. And your stomach sort of goes, doesn't it?
It really does. And there's pictures of her today in the Mail with very, very close relationships with some of Jeffrey Epstein's employees. They've got a smiling justice posing with Jojo Fontanilla, who was Epstein's driver, and Junlin Fontanilla, his housekeeper, at his New York mansion. The pictures were posted on Facebook in 2010, but could have been taken earlier. One commentator posted under the images, "Wow, you're in the company of royalty." Some suggestions as well by the author Andrew Lowney that she didn't just borrow £15,000 from him; she borrowed £2 million.
Oh, really? That's just dreadful.
Yeah.
Well, she was owing £5 million. She was so out of money that she was desperate, and that's how she stayed with him for a while, because she knew that she would do anything to get the money. This is the second time she has been had no money twice, and actually doesn't give a very good impression to her children.
It really doesn't, and they've got a rather curious situation, haven't they? Where Prince Andrew and Fergie share the same house in that lodge on the Windsor estate.
Yes.
And they don't apparently share a room. They have separate rooms, but there's 30-odd rooms in the place. I mean, the question on the front of the Daily Mail is, will the King now banish her? Do you think he might?
Well, yes, I do think so, because he's really wanted to get rid of Andrew, because it's a huge house and he hasn't looked after it.
Right.
And apparently she has been providing all the money, because he's actually pretty broke as well, and he can't get people to give him work. Quite rightly so, I think. And so it's going to be very difficult for them to keep up anything there. And so this is King Charles's opportunity to move them out. I don't see why they're there anyway, because neither of the children want to stay there either.
Right.
So you've got this enormous building that actually is full of nothing.
Right. Where would they go, though?
Well, they could go to the one that Harry and Meghan had, you know, a small place with sort of 3 or 4 bedrooms.
Frogmore.
Yes, and they could have that. I mean, King Charles has actually asked them several times if they'd do that, but Andrew thinks it's demeaning.
Right.
Well, this is more demeaning, isn't it, by a long way?
Well, it's bad enough to have him scandal-ridden, but now she's scandal-ridden. I mean, to have 7 charities drop her on the very same afternoon, it's pretty awful.
Shall I read them? There's the Teenage
Yes.
Trust, British Heart Foundation, Julia's House, which is a children's hospice, Children's Literary Charity, Prevent Breast Cancer. Yes, that's it. No, National Foundation for Retired Service Animals.
Yeah.
These are all the things that she's been a patron of. Well, you can't have that, because it just makes the whole place stink, doesn't it?
Well, exactly.
You can't have someone like that who's saying how glorious this man was. You know, you can't do it. But the other thing that's very interesting is that Prince Philip wouldn't have her anywhere near them.
No.
Christmas, Easter, he just refused it. Whereas the late Queen actually quite liked her, because she's jolly and laughable and all that. But he was right. Absolutely.
Right.
For over 20 years, she couldn't come on Christmas or Easter, and she had to stay away where the children could come, but not her. And now, once he had died, the late Queen invited her because she felt sorry for her.
Right.
I think that was going to end now.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be a sort of Sandringham of this Christmas, are they?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be pretty awful. It's all very embarrassing. Angela, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Angela Levin, their royal biographer, about the embarrassment of Fergie, who's on the front pages this morning, because 7 separate charities have basically axed her and their connection with her because of her emails to Jeffrey Epstein. It puts further pressure on the King to expunge Sarah Ferguson, it says here in the Mail, and her ex-husband from even private family events, and finally find a way to evict them from Royal Lodge. She describes Epstein as a supreme friend. She humbly apologised for an interview in which she disowned him after a £15,000 loan he gave her came to light, which we don't think she ever actually paid back, by the way. But as I say, others think that perhaps the money that he got to give her was even more than £15,000. And according to Andrew Lowney, who's writing in the Mail today, it could be as much as £2 million that he was given. He was giving her. Absolutely extraordinary. Lash says this, love your show. Regarding soppy Starmer's decision to recognise Palestine and that medieval cult Hamas, I think there is a sickening side effect no one is talking about. It legitimises the pro-Palestine marches we have endured over the past year, and it may well significantly undermine the ability to prosecute Hamas supporters in this country. Honestly, Mike, I feel sick to my stomach. And Tim in Taunton says Starmer's wife is Jewish, which means his kids are Jewish. Looks like happy families in the Starmer household. Well, he's getting a lot of flack this morning, Keir Starmer, because not only yesterday was there the aftermath of his allowing Palestine to get recognition as a country, as a state, by the UK, but he also then went out and wished all Jewish people in Britain a happy New Year, a happy Rosh Hashanah, on the very same day as that had happened, which was absolutely extraordinary. This from Mick. I'm totally fed up and resent being gaslit and lied to by pathetic manufactured politicians and civil servants living in luxury off my back while I can't afford hot water and food. Don't blame you, Mick. Let's get a voice note from Len.
Morning, Mike. Len from Brighton. Yeah, Starmer. I mean, what is he all about? I mean, he's got to be off his rocker. After giving Hamas the victory, saying that he would recognise the Palestinian state, and then putting out a tweet saying he stands shoulder to shoulder with Jewish people across the country. Who the hell does he think he is? I mean, he's not just funny anymore. I think he's doing this on purpose.
Absolutely right. Len, thank you very much indeed. One here from Carol in Yorkshire. Kaz, in fact. I think an appropriate name for our disastrous Prime Minister would be Kim Jong-un, because like the despot, the wishes of the electorate are non-existent. Absolutely. Ryan from Southampton says, my wife has been here 10 years. She's from Poland. She works 2 jobs and we have a daughter. This indefinite leave to remain abolishment will most likely mean someone like my wife will have to leave if a reform government gets in, or have I got it wrong? I'm also a Reform member. Well, I spoke earlier to a Reform Assembly member, Alex Wilson, and I did ask him about this because several of you have asked me the question, would it mean that people who have been living here for a long time from foreign parts and who have got indefinite leave to remain will be at some way at risk of being kicked out of the country? He says not. He says if you're living here and working here and you're contributing to the system, then you would always be welcome. And I think that's as it should be. One here from Kelly, who says, my husband is working as a commercial floor layer today in Oxford Street at a well-known brand. He's had to arrive there for 5:30 a.m. to unload his van, and then he will have to drive miles away to park it and walk back, then work a long day to do it all again after hours. Khan clearly hasn't thought this through. No, he clearly hasn't. I mean, the thing is, mostly Oxford Street is a pedestrian precinct, effectively. There are taxis that go down it, there are buses that go down it, but there are not many cars that go down it, certainly for most part of it, between, you know, sort of Selfridges and Oxford Circus. That's kind of the main part of it. And so what he's done to say he wants to pedestrianise it is not really make that much of a difference, to be honest. But I can't imagine how difficult it is to deliver stuff there because you just simply can't park anywhere either. That's the problem with London. 0344 499 1000. Coming up, we're going to talk about this story from America about paracetamol and its link with autism. Catherine Roy is going to join us, a maternity safety campaigner. We'll see what she has to say. This is Talk.
What possibly has spooked him completely into this precipitate action was Emmanuel Macron, the French president, saying that he was going to do this. And I think that probably Sir Keir Starmer thought, well, I'm going to be left, looking even more weak or I'm going to be in an even weaker position in terms of these people who want my head if I don't go along with this. Plus, I'm afraid to say, I think that Starmer himself, he's obsessed by what he calls the two-state solution.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to 5 minutes to 8. Time is flying, ladies and gentlemen. It's Monday, it's Tuesday, the 23rd of September, and we're going to talk now about the Donald Trump announcement yesterday in which he said that basically paracetamol is not good, no good. Here, a voice note from Sue.
Morning, Mike. Morning, Peter. Sue from Farncombe here. Can I just point out, President Trump is only reading out which someone has given him. So he has no idea, like you or me. He's just taking the word, whoever wrote the script.
Well, let's have a look at the script. Trump talking yesterday about paracetamol.
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary. That's, for instance, in cases of extremely high fever, that you feel you can't tough it out, you can't do it. I guess there's that.
It's a strange one, this. Let's talk to Catherine Roy, maternity safety campaigner. Catherine, good morning to you.
Good morning.
It's not that clear why Donald Trump's come out with this now, is it?
No, it's not very clear, and it's bizarre because all the experts agree on this. The whole scientific and medical community agrees that there is no link between paracetamol in pregnancy and autism, that it's one of the safest drugs to use in pregnancy. So it's very strange.
Yeah. I don't know what it's like in other countries, but I had a message this morning from Michelle, who said that she was pregnant in Paris about 20 years ago, and she went to get some paracetamol from a pharmacy and they wouldn't give it to her.
Well, regulations might be slightly different, and 20 years ago, maybe she needed a prescription because she was pregnant. I don't know.
Right. But is that the case anywhere? Are there countries where you need, if you are pregnant and you ask for paracetamol, that you won't get it, or that you need a prescription?
I'm not sure. I've not heard of that. There might be places where you need a prescription, but that's just because they have rules.
Right. But in terms of the UK's policy anyway, UK doctors will give you paracetamol if you're, you can buy it over the counter, I presume, if you go into a pharmacy.
Yes, you can buy it over the counter as long as you follow the instructions, then you're fine. And if you have any questions, then ask your midwife or your doctor.
Okay. And so you've never come across any link between autism and paracetamol?
No. All the studies do not show that there is a link. So I don't know where they've got this from, because I don't know. I'm not aware of studies that have proved a causal link between paracetamol in pregnancy and autism.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, the talk is of a different drug as well. The US President's administration suggested that leucovorin, typically used in cancer treatment to counter the side effects of other drugs, could be an answer to the condition. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's my understanding of autism is that it's mainly genetics. So I'm not sure one drug is, can do much. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. Catherine, thanks very much indeed. Catherine Roy, maternity safety campaigner. So she doesn't believe there's a link to autism from paracetamol in any way, shape or form. So we'll explore it a little bit more in the next hour. Also, Ryan Saby joins us from The Sun. Ross Clark as well, who's written about net zero and Gatwick Airport. Alan Duncan as well joins us because we need to find out what is going on in Syria and those refugee camps. This, of course, is Morning Glory. We'll be back after the news.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to 3 minutes past 8. It is, of course, Tuesday, the 23rd of September. The sun is up. The sky's looking reasonably cloudless, actually, but a lot chillier this morning. It was below 10 degrees again when I came out sort of early doors this morning, about 4:30, 4:45. But, of course, we are now into the autumn season, and we're being told that there are many things we must prepare for. To wit, will you be able to afford enough water to use in your house? We're being told that there's going to be plans afoot to basically use in your loo, flush your loo with rainwater, because that will save you £100 a year, very possibly. They're going to talk about putting new houses together, new builds, so they've got more sustainable water. Well, here's an idea. Why don't you actually build a water construction which doesn't leak water into the ground? Why don't you get some pipes that actually don't have any holes in them? Why don't you actually fix all of that? I've got people in my road at the moment fixing the power supply. I've no idea what they're doing. There's a generator running 24/7. It's like having a lorry parked outside your front door. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why they're doing it, but they're doing it for a very, very long time, and they have been doing it for about the best part of the last 6 months. We're going to be talking about a great many things this morning. Fergie, of course, on the front pages, the Duchess of York, facing ruin because she's been dropped now by 7 separate charities as a result of some rather greasy, ghastly, horrible emails that she sent to convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, saying that he was her supreme friend. Also, pictures have surfaced of her hanging around with his driver, with his housekeeper, spending time in his house in New York, basically being in receipt of anything between £15,000 that he loaned her to possibly £2 million. There's now calls for her and Prince Andrew to be kicked out of the lodge at Windsor where they live and being put into a much smaller residence and maybe being sort of isolated and exiled out of the royal family once and for all. The scandal may be just too much to bear. 0344 499 1000. We'll be talking as well about Nigel Farage and his attempts yesterday to say he's going to save $230 billion off the public purse because he's going to limit the amount of benefits that migrants can receive. He's also going to do away with the right to remain in this country indefinitely because there's just too much money going south. 3.8 million people supposedly moved here under Boris Johnson's reign after Brexit because it's called the Boris Wave, and many of those people are now in receipt of benefits. 1 in 6 people now in receipt of universal credit is born overseas and has come here from another country. Nigel Farage wants to save that money because guess what? Rachel Reeves wants to spend it. She wants to put your income tax up by 2p. She wants to come after pensioners. She's trying to fill her black hole, which gets bigger literally by the week. It's now around about 50 or 60 billion, and coming up soon she's going to have a budget to try and get some of that money back in. Well, what better news than to stop it going out to people who are not doing any work and people who are migrants? 0344 499 1000. We'll talk about the paracetamol story from Donald Trump as well. And also, there's a trigger warning for the Christmas Carol. Apparently it's about poor people. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Coming up very shortly, we'll speak to Ryan Saby, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun. Here's a voice note from Jason on rainwater.
Good morning, Mike. Jason from Whitby. This rainwater thing with flushing the toilet. Years ago, every house used to have a cold water tank on top of the outhouse that collected the rainwater that we used in different ways. History just proves, again, that we've already come up with all the best ideas and we're going backwards. Do you remember when we used to recycle pop bottles and milk bottles? And now we're going back to it. When are the politicians going to wake up and realise that progress is not always a good thing?
Yes, well, you may well ask. Margaret says a friend of ours lived in Papua New Guinea. He collected rainwater. Could you imagine us collecting rainwater? Rachel, the economist, would tax it. Yeah, I mean, Papua New Guinea, I imagine, is a bit different, really, to, say, living in Kingston or just south of London. I don't know. Mike, don't we already use rainwater, says Carl. Where do they think it comes from? Rain to reservoir, reservoir to us, with the water bill, obviously. Great show as ever, says Carl in Yorkshire. Yeah, well, I mean, not all the water that you get comes from a reservoir, I suppose. I don't know where it comes from. We haven't got very many reservoirs left, have we? Anyway, we'll come back to that. Let's talk to Ryan Saby, Deputy Police Editor at The Sun. Ryan, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Very good to see you. Another interesting week in the dangerous world of international politics. I've got Keir Starmer this morning asking for people in Palestine to stop rewarding other people in Palestine for killing Israelis and saying basically what they should do is stop this, pay to slay policy where you hand out stipends to the families of martyrs killed for attacks on Israelis. You think he might have thought of that before he decided to grant, nation status to Palestine?
Yeah, this is always going to be a big controversy for Sir Keir Starmer. And I thought one of the interesting things, actually, with such a prominent announcement, that he didn't actually go to the United Nations himself. Now, he gets criticised for when he goes abroad. He's not at home dealing with domestic issues. But you would have wondered, with Donald Trump at the United Nations today, Emmanuel Macron making his big announcement on Palestine, that whether it was Sir Keir who should have gone himself. And instead, he just delivered this social media message. Now, there was lots in the build-up. He obviously mentioned it at Chequers last week when he was with the US president. But you just wonder whether this was the moment when a British Prime Minister should have gone to the United Nations to explain and give reasons for the decision. But he didn't. He decided to stay here, and he has his own reasons for that. But you just wondered whether that was the right moment to actually step up.
A lot of people being critical as well of the fact that he announced it on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, which of course is the Jewish New Year, and he then put out a tweet yesterday wishing everybody a very joyous and happy New Year to the Jews of Britain. I think many of them took that the wrong way. Yeah, no, you look at the reaction from that sort of social media post and the video and just the way that that he's gone about it. Just reading comments from those who are criticising it, saying that the move was tone deaf, it was hypocritical, and he seems to have come in for a lot of attacks on that. So you just wonder whether he could have held a press conference, he could have sort of fronted up a little bit more, especially when that announcement was actually made. So. As it's been a difficult few weeks for Sir Keir Starmer, whether you look at Angela Rayner, Peter Mandelson decision, the sacking there, and this is just another sort of row that he sort of waded himself into. Well, he does seem to have done, doesn't he? And also, people were saying to me yesterday there wasn't really any public discourse around this decision. There was no conversation in Parliament, as far as we could see. There was not really any conversations in the media about it. You didn't see cabinet ministers writing pieces for newspapers at all. You didn't see really any kind of conversation around this attempt, this manoeuvre. He just kind of announced it, and people feel as though they haven't really discussed it. Yeah, no, also, I think the timing of it was that, 6 weeks ago, the government set out that it would always happen in and around the United Nations General Assembly week, which is this week. Yeah. But the thing is, Parliament is not sitting this week. So you just wonder whether they could have done something last week where ministers, the Foreign Secretary, the Prime Minister would have been accountable to MPs. But just by the sheer timing of it, it is slightly... It means MPs won't be able to question it until they come back in a few weeks' time after the party conferences. Yes, exactly right. Meanwhile, there's this other story that popped up at the weekend, which isn't really going away, and this is this thing about the £700,000 of donations, which was made to something called Labour Together, the think tank, which was run by Morgan McSweeney, and it was kind of being used, it would appear, as a sort of a fundraising arm for Keir Starmer's leadership bid, right? But it seems as though there's a bit of jiggery-pokery and certainly some possible criminal activity going on. Obviously, we don't know that yet, but certainly it would appear that some of this money has been hidden from scrutiny. Yeah, no, it seems like Labour Together received some fines or from the Electoral Commission overpayments. Now, I think the interesting thing is that obviously this organisation was run by Morgan McSweeney. Obviously, he's now the Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister. I think the questions have been raised over what sort of polling or help or assistance or jobs were handed to Sir Keir Starmer in terms of what sort of assistance he got, and was that actually declared properly? Now, I get the impression, I think Downing Street have commented on this, saying obviously there was nothing untoward that actually took place. But the Conservatives are really going for this. I think they smell a weak point here, and Morgan McSweeney, he's obviously had been in the line of fire over recent weeks. He was very, very close to Peter Mandelson. We understand that he was pushing for him to actually get that job in Washington, but before he was sacked. But I think the Tories smell blood here, and it'd be interesting to see how this plays out in the coming days. Yeah, absolutely right. And meanwhile, you've got Rachel Reeves this morning on the front pages looking at still more reasons to try and raise money. And we'll talk about Nigel Farage in a minute, his press conference yesterday. But she's been told to launch a tax raid on pensioners. There seems to be even more of a close connection now between the Resolution Foundation, which is a think tank very much on the left side of Labour's kind of spectrum, if you want, an awful lot of worries from people who have got pensions, worries from people who have got businesses, concerns that income tax could be going up 2p in the pound. There's a lot of things for people to be concerned about. Yeah, I think one of the key things for people to watch out for as we come to that budget at the end of November is the Treasury
will not say anything on the record when it comes to tax. They will not even venture there. The thing to watch is all these sort of left-wing think tanks, all these groups that are coming up with ideas. Now, this one, the Resolution Foundation, has very, very close ties with Torsten Bell, who is now a Treasury Minister.
Right.
He was their chief executive for many, many years, only stepped down when he got his parliamentary seat last year. So these are the kind of ideas. Now, they may not be entertained by the Treasury, but they are coming up with these ideas, and these are the sort of ideas that Treasury ministers look at, because when you've got a financial black hole of 30, 35, 40 billion pound that needs filling, you are looking for ideas of how to fill this. And this is just one such idea where there will be a two-piece switch from national insurance to income tax. Now, obviously, the Labour government and the Treasury were very, very keen last night to point out that they are not going to break their election promises, which were they were not going to raise national insurance, VAT, or income tax. So, but let's just see where maybe this one may not fly, but let's just see what other ideas the Resolution Foundation come up with and see what Treasury ministers are listening to, because they've got a big financial black hole to fill.
Sure. And we know that they're very nervous about reform. They're constantly going on about reform. They're trying to attack them at every sort of opportunity. What's been the reaction in Downing Street to Nigel Farage's press conference yesterday, in which he said he wanted to ban all foreign nationals from claiming benefits, scrapping permanent residency rights, that he says will save Britain from bankruptcy?
Yeah, no, I thought it was very, very interesting yesterday. When Nigel Farage sat down at that press conference after that finish, it didn't take too long for the Labour Party chair, Anna Turley, to say, "Oh, this policy, is falling apart. It's sort of dead on arrival." Darren Jones talking about the sort of savings that Reform said they'll make from their immigration shake-up, which was about £230 billion. Darren Jones, now chief sort of secretary to the Prime Minister, the sort of de facto Deputy Prime Minister, said that these sums were drawn up on the back of a fag packet. So I think what you're going to see is Reform, as they come up with more and more detailed policy, that they are really going to come under the spotlight, not only from Labour and the Conservatives, but also from the media, who are going to be scrutinising all those policies, because if they want to be lining up to be the next government, that their policies and their costings will have to stand up to scrutiny. So I think it's going to be a very, very interesting couple of years for Reform. And, let's see how they handle it under the spotlight. But I was at the press conference yesterday, and they were very steadfast on their policies. No benefits for overseas workers who come here, the scrapping of indefinite leave to remain, and having that rolling 5-year visa that will come in. It's headline grabbing, but let's just watch the detail. Let's have a look at that.
OK. Bit of breaking news for you. Carmaker Jaguar Land Rover has just announced it's going to extend its pause in production until October the 1st, as it recovers from that cyber attack which took place some weeks ago. It brings me to ask the question whether or not any of the sort of tariff arguments that are still hanging about in the air have been sorted out yet, because I think there's still, if I'm not mistaken, a tariff on British cars going into the United States of America. Has anything changed there?
No, we thought there'd be some big changes when Donald Trump came over for the state visit. We thought that it'd been promised for a long time that those tariffs would go down to zero when it came to steel, but it hasn't. But this is causing massive problems on one level for companies like Jaguar Land Rover, and with this cyber attack, it causes all a host of problems. You just compare it to, what happened to Marks and Spencer's, where it took them several months to get back up and running again. So this is just one extra burden that businesses such as Jaguar Land Rover just don't need when trading conditions are particularly tough anyway.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, they almost kiboshed their own brand, didn't they, by coming out with all that rubbish about, changing the logo and changing the way it looks and all the rest of it. And now they're just not making cars at all. I mean, it's almost like they're trying to deliberately, destroy their own company. Yeah, no, that's right. And I think one of the things for a lot of car companies who are sending all their products to America, it's just, how do they try and make money? It's been very, very difficult. Do they ship all these cars over to America? There was, problems over
whether or not the tariffs would be in place by the time they actually got to America or not. So I think for the last sort of 6-7 months or so, ever since we saw those Liberation Day tariffs being brought in by Donald Trump, it's been particularly difficult. And this government has come under major criticism because they said that the steel tariffs would be reduced to zero, and that has just not happened.
No, and that is the problem. So the deal is still not quite the deal that everybody was sold by Keir Starmer. Ryan, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Ryan Sabey there, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun, with the latest from the United Nations. Yvette Cooper was there yesterday. Starmer's going to be there soon. Donald Trump's there today, where he's likely to be giving a pretty hard time to those countries in Europe and other places around the world who have decided to recognise Palestine as a state. Here's a voice note from Lee.
Morning, Mike. Lee from Chelmsford. I'm surprised to see Starmer's not going to the UN meeting this week. He normally likes a foreign trip, so he sent Lammy instead. No doubt he'll bore everyone with a speech on Palestine. Are they going to have a UK ambassador out there? Because I don't know who's doing the vetting for that, but maybe we could send one of our finest to take that role on. Anyway, all the best.
Yeah, the last I heard, they were talking about possibly giving it to George Osborne. Actually, which should be even funnier than Peter Mandelson, to be fair. How about this, though? Keir Starmer's put out an early first tweet of the day. He's done this at 7:53, which is almost half an hour ago. My government has given the go-ahead for a record number of major infrastructure projects, creating thousands of jobs and driving growth across the country. I promised we would get Britain building. That's exactly what we're doing. Really? OK, then. Well, I don't know anyone in the world who thinks that Britain is in a position to build anything right now, because we haven't got enough people, we haven't got enough material, haven't got enough concrete for a start. An awful lot of people who build for a living have moved out of the country and are no longer working here. So good luck with promising to get Britain building, Mr Prime Minister. Coming up, we'll be talking about Gatwick and the second runway shambles, because Ross Clark's got a piece in The Sun in which he says voles and bats will delay it, but net zero could actually kill it. Of course, there are people who are complaining about it already, before it's even started. This is Talk.
What possibly has spooked him completely into this precipitate action was Emmanuel Macron, the French president, saying that he was going to do this. And I think that probably Sir Keir Starmer thought, well, I'm going to be left, looking even more weak or I'm going to be in an even weaker position in terms of these people who want my head if I don't go along with this. Plus, I'm afraid to say, I think that Starmer himself, he's obsessed by what he calls the two-state solution.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 24 minutes past 8. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock. Before that, Kevin Hollingworth's going to join us, the MP, of course, for the Tories and Conservative party chairman as well as MP for Thirsk and Malton. He's actually written a letter to the Electoral Commission asking about the £700,000 donation cover-up involving Morgan McSweeney and Keir Starmer. And apparently he says this isn't just bad judgment, it's a potential crime. So we'll find out from him exactly how serious he thinks that is. Right now, though, it's time to talk to Ross Clark. He's got a big piece in the Sun today, page 10. Voles and bats will delay it. We're talking about the Gatwick second runway, but net zero could actually kill it. And there's a little graphic on there where it says it's taken 12 years to decide to move the second runway 12 metres. So it's actually already there. It's just been used as a kind of relief runway, as far as I'm aware. Let's find out what he means by that. And have we got Steve on rainwater first? Yeah, let's do that.
Morning, Mike. I've been using rainwater for years to flush my toilet. It comes down from the sky, it goes into a reservoir, and by the magic of Victorian engineering, it ends up in my toilet.
Yes, I can see what you did there, Steve. I think that's not kind of what they have in mind. I think what they have in mind is you actually collecting it in some kind of water butt and using it that way. I don't know. Very strange. Ross, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike.
You know, on the one hand, we talk about expanding airports. On the other hand, we get these kind of green types telling us that we should be using rainwater to wash in and, you know, all sorts of ridiculous ideas from the sort of 16th century. But tell us about Gatwick, because it seems to be all a bit of a muddle.
Yeah, well, the situation with Gatwick is it does have two runways at the moment.
Right.
The main runway, and it's got an emergency runway, which can be used when the other one's out of service. But the trouble is the runways aren't quite far away enough to be used concurrently when you can't have one plane landing on one and another plane landing on the other, because they're 12 metres too close to each other by regulations. So what Gatwick's proposing to do is to move the emergency runway 12 metres to the north, and then it will obey the regulations and can be used independently. So it's not a sort of enormous project. It can be all completed within the airport's existing boundaries, and yet it's already taken sort of 12 years to get to the point of get from the Gatwick sort of announcing this project and the government approving it, and it's likely to take another 5 years before it's open. And a fascinating contrast between what happened in 1948 when the Russians cut off the land access to West Berlin and we had the Berlin airlift. Everything had to be taken in by plane. On that occasion, the military authorities, with the help of West German citizens, built a runway. Do you have a guess how long it took them between breaking ground, deciding to build this runway, and the first plane landing on it, becoming operational?
Well, if I know the army as I do, I think I'd probably say about a month.
Well, it's 90 days. Yeah, they started on 5th of August and it was open on 5th of November. 3 months to build a runway and now it takes us like 17 years and to think about it and then go through the courts and then get on with building it, and then of course you find some rare variety of vole or something who's in the way. But in the case of Gatwick's second runway, in the case of all airport expansion, there is another very, very big blot on the horizon, and that is the shape of the 2050 net zero target, which demands that the government, legally binding demand that the government achieves net zero carbon emissions by that date. And there is just absolutely no way that any airport expansion is going to be consistent with that target, because we don't have the affordable technology at the moment to decarbonize jet aircraft. Right. So
well, isn't there some suggestion,
it's rather doomed in the courts.
Yeah, isn't there some suggestion they're going to be using biofuel of some kind by then?
Yeah, there's a thing called sustainable airline fuel, which it can be made in a variety of different ways. The easiest way to make it is by using used cooking oil,
right.
Sort of But there are only so many chip shops in the world, and this is the problem. You know, you can collect all the used cooking oil in the world, but it's not going to power all the world's jet airliners, even slightly. And not only that, it's very expensive. It's
Well, you would think so, yeah, because you're effectively collecting it from sort of, you know, I don't know, relatively small outlets who are making it and putting it into, instead of putting it into waste, putting it into something else. And then you're somehow going to try and collate all of that, put it into a great big tanker and drive it to an airport and fill a plane with it. And I'm not even certain I want to fly on a plane that's full of used cooking oil, to be honest.
Well, I think the oil will be processed in such a way to be safe. I mean, Virgin,
Yeah, they did a flight,
Atlantic already flew a plane across the Atlantic on this fuel, and I wouldn't have any safety concerns about it. But it's just the simple economics of it. To manufacture this fuel, well, there's not enough chip shops in the world, as I say. So the other way to manufacture is from green hydrogen, which is made through electrolysis of water and carbon dioxide. You can make it synthetically. But
seems to be an awful lot of
even
trouble
more
to go
expensive.
to, isn't it?
It's going to be about 7 times the price.
Yeah, but this is the thing. You go to an awful lot of trouble to replace something which works perfectly well, which is called aviation fuel, which tends to be pretty damn good, actually. But in terms of the actual runway itself and whether it becomes something which Rachel Reeves says it will become, have a look at what she says the benefits of this are going to be. Because she seems to think that not only will it be cheaper for people to travel, right, but actually somehow it will create loads and loads of jobs. Check it out.
Government are backing a second runway here at Gatwick. That's in addition to our commitments to a third runway at Heathrow, small modular reactors, a new nuclear power station in Suffolk, backing energy projects and transport projects right around the country. But this extra runway at Gatwick will mean that people going on holiday will have a greater choice of destinations. It will mean lower costs for a family holiday, and it will also mean more good jobs, paying decent wages through this injection of cash into our economy. We said as a government we would back the builders and not the blockers, and that is exactly what we are doing with this announcement.
So, any of that true?
Well, she's not wrong to say that an extra runway at Gatwick would add destinations for British air passengers and could lead to, you know, cheaper, more affordable fares. But, you know, how do you get there when you've got these reams of environmental regulations which are making it very difficult for the government to build this or any other infrastructure project?
But wouldn't you need to also build another terminal?
Oh, yeah, it is part of the plans to expand the number of aircraft stands at Gatwick.
So we're talking, I think, probably quite a long time away before any of this can be happening, right?
Yes, yeah. So it'd be at least 5 years, and it's already been 12 years already. So, yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath that you're going to have a greater choice of flights in future. But
and why would it be cheaper? Just because there's more flights?
Well, if it's cheaper, there's more competition. Oh, sorry, if there's more runway capacity, there's potentially more competition, which can
well, all I know is flights that used to be a lot cheaper seems to be a lot more expensive.
Well, yes, I mean, obviously the flights are going to be the price of flying is going to be forced up by sustainable aviation, for the cost of sustainable aviation fuel, which the government does, by the way, has a what they call the sustainable airline fuel mandate, which from this year airlines have got to use 2%, a mix of 2% SAF in their planes. By 2030 that increases, and 2040 it increases further. So but you know, the cost of that, the cost of moving over to a greener fuel is going to force up airline prices more than this third runway will try to bring them down. And another problem, by the way, when it comes to net zero and flying, and why it's going to sort of condemn the airline industry, is that about half of, or more than half of the greenhouse gas emissions from planes, according to some estimates, come from the contrails, the you know, the water vapor clouds that are pushed out the back of the engine. So however green the fuel is, you've still got this problem with contrails. And so how the government is going to argue that more airline expansion is consistent with net zero. I just can't see. I don't think it's be doomed in the courts as long as we have that net zero target.
I know, it's crazy. Anyway, it's a great piece, Ross. Thank you very much indeed. Ross Clark in the Sun today. Gatwick's second runway shambles. Yeah, they're going to move it 12 metres to the north, and then they're going to start using it at some point in the next 5 to 10 years. So, you know, I wouldn't book any holidays just yet, on the basis that it will probably be even more expensive by the time you get on the bleeding plane, because it'll be full of chip pan oil, and there'll be chemtrails coming out the back of it. I mean, can anybody make any sense of any of this rubbish? It's completely mad. 0344 499 1000. Let's find out what the Sun Letters page is saying.
Letters from the Sun, the page where you tell Britain what to think. For more, visit thesun.co.uk.
It would appear that our Prime Minister is getting another shoeing, this time on the Palestinian decision he made. Granville in Lancashire, in Hoddleston, says, what right has Sir Keir Starmer to recognise Palestine? Don't I get a vote on it, as it could affect me in future? I fully support Israel, but agree they are going too far in Gaza. The war could end if Hamas repatriated all the Israeli hostages. This from Graham in Bolton. If it's so important for Starmer to recognise the state of Palestine on our behalf, he should have announced it in the correct place, Parliament. That's what I said. Shameful. And Mick in Basildon in Essex says, what gives Prime Minister Starmer the right to say Britain recognises Palestine? Did he ask us, the UK population? A recent survey showed the vast majority of Brits do not and would not recognise Palestine as a state. Well, this is the trouble. You know, he's rode roughshod over all of that. Let's get a voice note from Jason on Oxford Street.
Mike, I'm a London taxi driver. They don't enforce the restrictions on Oxford Street, so cars drive up and down it all day, which is mostly minicabs that Mr. Khan likes to over-licence. If he stopped them going down it and just had taxis and buses as it should be, it wouldn't be a problem. But when you do close it, it will be chaos everywhere, with diverted buses and vehicles blocking up every other street. It's a ludicrous idea.
It is a ludicrous idea, Jason, just like every other idea he's had, you know, and also getting rid of all the union flags so that you can put up big posters that say, the Mayor of London, you know, this is Oxford Street. Well, we know it's Oxford Street because that's what it says on the side of the building, for heaven's sake. 8:36.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:38. I'm Mike Graham. Why don't they just change the regulations by 12 metres rather than build a new runway 12 metres further north, says Kevin in Stafford. It's a good question. Pete says, flying across the Atlantic using oil. Was it virgin olive oil by chance? Oh, very good. See what you did there. Regarding rainwater for toilets, says Fox, Gibraltar uses seawater for toilets only, and it's free. Well, that makes a lot of sense. You see, I've always said we should be using more seawater. I mean, we're actually surrounded by the stuff, and we don't seem to use it for anything. Phil from Essex, if Keir Starmer is given the go-ahead for all these building projects across the country, what I would like to know is where's the money coming from, as I thought we have a huge black hole in our finances at the moment, and they're looking at putting up our taxes. Well, they are. Let's get a voice note from Dan.
Good morning, Mike. It's Dan from Kent. On Trump recognising Antifa as a terrorist organisation, you can bet your bottom dollar that Starmer's going to go the other way. He'll probably give them some uninhabited Scottish island to call home. I don't know, recognise it as a state, chuck in a few billion pocket change that he's found. You just know it's going to happen. Anyway, great show.
Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it, Dan? Well, hopefully some of Donald Trump's perspicacity will rub off on Keir Starmer. Doesn't so far seem to be the case. But we're going to talk in a moment to Alan Duncan, documentary filmmaker, a man that travels backwards and forwards to some of these refugee camps in Syria. We've got a clip for you as well of Shamima Begum. There was a story yesterday suggesting that these refugee camps, which Alan and I have spoken about many times, could be emptying out now, and they're filled with people with ISIS shall we say, hereditary feelings, and people who support and have supported ISIS and fought on ISIS's behalf for quite a long time. Check this out. Got any sound on that? That's Shamima Begum, I believe, sitting there waiting for somebody to talk to her. It's not exactly clear what's going on. We'll come back to that because I'm not quite sure what we're seeing here. Let's talk to Alan Duncan. He might be able to talk us through it. Alan, very good morning to you.
Oh, hiya, Mike.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us on. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Looks like somebody tried to get an interview with Shamima Begum. You've managed to do that on several occasions. What do you make of this particular situation?
See, the thing is, you've got to bear in mind with Begum, she's pretty media savvy. She's got lawyers. She's got, all the lovies that are the backup team. She's pretty media savvy. She's not going to do an interview unless it's planned out, questions up front, and let's be honest, it's got a drip feed her, pity me, I'm a victim, I didn't know what I was doing garbage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. So, I mean, she's not likely to have agreed to do an interview in any event. But what do you make of this story that says, something you've been saying for a while, that these camps are likely to sort of empty out one of these days and these people are all going to go somewhere?
What's been happening is the Iraqis have been taking a lot of ISIS back to Iraq. And I think there was 37 French ISIS that were put across to Iraq to stand trial there.
Yeah.
As well. So the camps have been emptying out. There has been countries taking ISIS back. A lot of them are doing it on the QT. And I've warned for a long time, there's a big agenda. And as far as I'm concerned, Begum gets back, they all get back. But I think Starmer sooner or later, mark my words, he's going to take them back. He's going to take them back and they won't stand a day in prison like others that they've sneaked back to Britain already.
Yeah, because that is the case, that hundreds and hundreds of these people who went out to fight or be sympathetic to the Hamas, the ISIS cause, have come back and are living amongst us, right?
Yeah, what I can say on that, Mike, is, I can say this because it's ongoing. I do know for a fact there is an ongoing investigation into one ISIS at the minute in Britain. Which could lead to a trial in Britain, and it would be the first trial connected to crimes to Yazidis. It would be the very first trial in Britain if they go ahead. That's all I can say.
Right. Okay.
With charges of him.
Right.
But also, you've got others that I've handed over evidence on, and totally admitting to joining a prescribed terrorist organisation, yet hey-ho, gets rehoused in Britain, whilst you do a tweet and you go to prison for doing a tweet, yet a few years with a prescribed terrorist organisation, hey, you're getting rewarded for it.
Yeah, well, there's a strange story on the front page of The Guardian today, which I don't know whether you've seen, about how Keir Starmer's apparently lobbying for the release of a British Egyptian human rights activist called Alaa Abdel Fattah, who's been serving jail time in Egypt. Guess for what? For sharing a Facebook post, right? It seems that Keir Starmer is very keen to get him out, but it's quite having to lock people up in his own country for doing the same thing.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, he's now rewarding Hamas, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Whilst in our own country, he's rewarding people for raping, murdering, and kidnapping men, women, children, and babies.
Yeah.
Yet you do a tweet in our own bloody country, and the police are literally kicking your door in. Off to the jail you go.
I know.
You get to make it up.
But then he's sort of lobbying to get somebody released from prison in another country who's been locked up for the same thing. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. But listen, it's great to see you, Alan. We'll catch up with you again soon. We've got to run. Alan Duncan, a documentary filmmaker. There was an attempt to interview Shamima Begum, by the looks of things, by some people associated with Daily Express. They didn't manage to get it in any way, shape or form because, as he says, she's fairly savvy about this kind of thing now, and she only does things which are very likely to result in her being welcomed back to Britain with open arms. At the moment, she's still persona non grata here, as indeed she should be. But there'll be others who are coming out of these camps in the Middle East who have been associated with ISIS or helping ISIS or in some way even murdering for ISIS, people who have left this country to go there, who will be coming back. And Keir Starmer will let them back. And we'll keep an eye on it because I think we need to. Let's get a voice note from Adrian.
Hi Mike, it's Adrian from East Sussex. On the road again to put more money into Starmer's pocket. But anyway, just a quick one. I understand that at United Nations going on with the Palestinian and all these countries foolishly lining up to reward Hamas, the United Kingdom could now be up for payments of up to £3 trillion for reparations. This guy is insane.
Yeah, that story was doing the rounds late yesterday. We'll see if we can find out what the likelihood of that is. But yeah, wouldn't it be completely and utterly ironic if this idiot has given nation status to a country which is then going to sue us for reparations because we didn't do it before? You couldn't make this stuff up, could you? It's coming up to very nearly 8:46. We're going to be talking football in a minute, but also Thomas Godfrey's here as well because there's a Wetherspoons in Surrey Quays, which is a part of South East London, where they're making people queue up. Form an orderly queue. You're not supposed to go to the bar. You're supposed to stand one behind the other. Absolutely madness, ridiculous stuff. We'll talk about that coming up next.
What possibly has spooked him completely into this precipitate action was Emmanuel Macron, the French president, saying that he was going to do this. And I think that probably Sir Keir Starmer thought, well, I'm going to be left, looking even more weak or I'm going to be in an even weaker position in terms of these people who want my head if I don't go along with this. Plus, I'm afraid to say, I think that Starmer himself, he's obsessed by what he calls the two-state solution.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. It's 10 minutes to 9. We'll be almost into the final hour very shortly. Jane says this: I started work at 15 till I was 61. I even worked at night when our family was small, when my husband came back from work. I paid tax then. It's cruel and unfair to take more. I'm a widow now. My pension is my income. Well, this is the thing. The trouble is this government is never going to run out of ways of trying to take your money because they haven't got enough money as it is. That's the point. Malcolm and Pat say, what's new? We've been using buckets of water from our water butts for years to flush the toilet. Well, good for you. You should probably get a prize for that. Coming up now, though, let's do 90 minutes in 90 seconds with The Sun.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from The Sun.
Justin Allen joins us, Chief EFL Writer at The Sun. Justin, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Manchester United have managed to prioritise a major goalkeeper signing, but not till next year.
Yeah, what an utter shambles again for Manchester United and a club of that stature. I mean, crying out loud. So today, actually, The Sun, we've signed our number one Manchester United correspondent, Samuel Luckhurst. He joins us, and his back page splash today is Ruben Amorim admitting that he doesn't have an outright number one keeper and that he's going to be top of his shopping list next season. Of course, their error-prone keeper, Andre Onana, he's been farmed out on loan to Turkey. Yeah. And Altay Beyonder, he's not exactly covered himself in any glory, made some mistakes for goals against Arsenal and Burnley. And they've signed Senna Lormans on transfer deadline day, so we don't know much about him at the moment. But United, they could turn to AC Milan's Mike Maignan next summer. He's out of contract. Or there could be a possibility that they turn to Emi Martinez of Aston Villa. They tried to get him this summer, actually, but that fell through. Right. But, just lots of shambles, really. I mean, they've been chaotic for a few years now.
They really have.
I mean, last season... last season, they might have been in a relegation fight if it wasn't the fact that the three promoted teams were so appalling.
Absolutely right. And this year they don't really look much better, do they?
No, they don't. Obviously they beat Chelsea the other day, which actually surprised me. I think that was almost an acca buster for most people, wasn't it? Because nowadays you put them down to lose. United are sort of going to be, I think, mid-table obscurity again this year.
Yeah, absolutely right. Meanwhile, at the other end of the glamour circuit, I suppose, you had the Ballon d'Or last night. Ousmane Dembele winning it. Is that for the first time?
That is for the first time, yeah. So it's good to see a new winner. 33 goals last year for PSG as they won the Champions League. And, he saw off that Barcelona wonder kid, the 18-year-old Lamine Yamal. Yeah. But last night, what was great, of course, was the England Lionesses again. They do us proud, don't they, all the time. And Serena Vigman was named Coach of the Year. Yeah. I mean, what a job she's done. I mean, back-to-back European Championships and, of course, got us to the World Cup final. And I think, as well, Hannah Hampton was voted best keeper. So a good night for the Lionesses.
Good stuff. Great to see you. Justin, thank you very much indeed. Justin Allen, Chief EFL Writer. It's all on the back page of The Sun, of course. That was 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from The Sun.
Regards water, says Gaza in Yorkshire. Maybe we had enough to go around before they let millions more people into the country. It's clear the supply and demand balance isn't working. Happens holding water companies accountable would also help. I'll start bottling my pee just in case the alarm goes off. Well, you could do. Maybe there'd be some kind of purification scenario you can get. You get some kind of kit, you know, like they take into the jungle, so you can do that kind of thing. I don't know. I'm sure somebody can come up with an idea. Meanwhile, if you want to go for a drink at Wetherspoons, certainly in places like Surrey Quays, which is not a million miles away from where we are here in London right now, it's sort of southeast London, on the way to Canary Wharf, you're going to be told to stand not at the bar, across the bar, but behind one another in front of the bar, forming an orderly queue. Great story in the Sun this morning, page 23. Thomas Godfrey is here to tell us exactly what it's all about. Thomas, good to see you. This all started, I think, during COVID, because I started spotting people doing this in pubs just around here, actually, when they kind of reopened them and people were kind of standing, you know, a metre behind one another. But sorry to see that it's still going on.
It is, yeah. It's a sort of weird COVID hangover, isn't it, of people trying to stay 2 metres apart while wanting to get a pint. And there was that weird period as well where you had to buy a Scotch egg too, which was very strange. Well, the Scotch egg bit has gone, but it seems that that policy has stuck in a few places. And actually, this Wetherspoons is one of the first, we think, in the country to actually put a sign up telling punters they have to get in the queue. Because that supposedly means they can provide a fair service for everyone. So gone are the days of any good barman knowing exactly who's next in line without having to rely on a visual aid of who's actually physically closest to them. And instead, they stuck the sort of bartendering game on easy mode by making everyone line up one by one. It means you don't have something to lean on while you're waiting to order a drink.
But the great thing about growing up in this country was that was one of the skills that you had to learn, was how to get served at a bar, you know, because you'd go up to a bar, and I mean, nowadays they're not as busy as they used to be. When I was about 18, you know, the bar would be rammed literally all night. You have to fight your way to the front, you have to fight your way to get noticed by somebody behind the bar, and you'd have to fight your way to getting the money to them so that, you know, you could get away and try not to spill anything. It was all part of the fun, but it sounds a bit boring now.
Well, I went along to the Surrey Docks pub yesterday and queued up, waited. I was third in a line of four, Mike, to buy 1 pint from Wetherspoons, and it did feel quite alien. It was very strange. It's not something I'm used to, but it's divided opinion among the customers there. Some say that there was no reason to get rid of the tradition and it's simply breaking something that didn't need fixing, or fixing something that wasn't broken.
Right.
Whereas there are some people there who just didn't really mind and thought, actually, you know, the time is changing, and even that tradition's had its last orders called.
I mean, I guess part of the problem as well is it depends how quickly you get served. I mean, how long did it take you? If you were 4 back, how long before you got to the front?
Well, it was only about 3 minutes, and you're right. I think your view on the queue probably depends what end of the line you're at. If you're outside the doors and there's 15 people ahead of you, and you're going to be a bit frustrated, you can't just wave a fiver or a tenner around to try and get someone's attention a bit sooner or a little bit quicker than the person standing next to you. But I mean, for me, it was a very strange experience. It's not something I've done that often before, but it did feel strange that at Wetherspoons, a pub chain owned by Tim Martin, who has said many times he dislikes single file queuing. He doesn't want it going on in pubs, that actually it would be that chain, that pub, that would implement this sort of rule. And when we asked Wetherspoons about it, they said they left it up to individual pubs to decide what queuing system, or if there was a queuing system, they wanted to put in place.
Well, I've got one here from David in New Cross who sent us a message. He says, the Wetherspoons at Surrey Quays is a haunt for Millwall fans on match day. Good luck with implementing the queuing system. That's probably a pretty tall order, I would imagine. But yeah, I mean, each to their own, I suppose. But certainly, I think during COVID, the idea of people kind of snaking outside of a pub and waiting more than about 10 minutes to get to the front of a queue is not for me, I'm afraid.
No, absolutely. It's not for me either. I think that we've moved on. We've gone back to the way we were pre-COVID, and it seems some places, including Wetherspoons, bizarrely, are still playing catch-up.
Yeah, I guess so. Extraordinary stuff. Just one thing before I let you go. We spoke last week because you went on that plane over to France with the zero number of migrants. They've now managed to get rid of 3, as far as we know. No more so far this week, as far as we're told. But we were expecting a plane to come back in from Paris, Charles de Gaulle, on Saturday. Can you tell us whether that happened?
My understanding is the first batch in haven't arrived yet. There's still talks ongoing as to when they will arrive. We have, of course, sent 3 back now, an Indian national, an Eritrean national, and another person who went back on one of those planned Air France flights last week. It means we are now obliged to take in at least 3 under the terms of this deal, and of course any others who we are able to deport this week. These are vetted asylum seekers. These are people who the Home Office and the French authorities say that if they had come to Britain and presented themselves and made an asylum claim, they would have been accepted. The only difference is these ones won't be crossing in a small boat. They'll be given a taxpayer-funded seat on a flight into Heathrow Airport.
Brilliant. Absolutely amazing. Thank you very much indeed. Good to see you. Thomas Godfrey there, Sun reporter, big piece on page 23 about queuing up at Wetherspoons. Do they do that where you are? Absolutely extraordinary stuff. Howard in Suffolk says, you're talking about my favourite pub, the Surrey Docks. Yes, I know I'm in Suffolk, but I do get out and about, and I spend a lot of time in that pub and many others around Rotherhithe. I've only seen queuing there during COVID, but it is a bit in that pub as the staff tend to congregate at the right end of the bar, and due to tables and building columns, there's no space for more than about 3 people. They need to encourage people down the left end of the bar that no one goes to, as there are no staff at that end. Crikey, you do spend a lot of time in there, Howard, don't you? What's the share of the fruit machine? It's coming up to 9 o'clock. Coming up, Kevin Hollingbrake's going to join us. He's having a go at the Electoral Commission for looking into Keir Starmer. It's all coming up after the news.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 3 minutes past 9. It is Tuesday the 23rd of September. We have got plenty of news for you this morning, ladies and gentlemen. The front page of The Sun has got an image of Bruckner, Christian Bruckner, that is, the man who was released from prison as the sort of chief suspect in the Madeleine McCann case. He's been spotted buying a phone. He's been spotted showing off his ankle bracelet for security purposes. He's been spotted talking about a great many things, including what he said was how he could have information that could solve the scandal of the century. He hasn't actually said precisely whether that is in connection to the Madeleine McCann murder or disappearance, but he says basically he is the main suspect in the case. He says people have been talking about it. He says people want to kill him. They want me dead. But there's pictures of him in a shop showing off, as I say, his ankle tag, like the one he has to wear. He's also, disturbingly, got an ID card which apparently does not limit his movements, even though he's supposedly banned from travelling outside of Germany. And German police are very concerned that he's going to try and just do a disappearing act on them. And so they're keeping an eye on him. He's bragging in a shop. He's obviously a convicted rapist, a horrible man. Front page is also full of the Duchess of York. Fergie, charities shun Duchess over Epstein friend email. 7 charities dropped her yesterday. And the Mail asked the question, will the King now banish Fergie and Andrew out of the Royal Lodge cottage that they live in on the Windsor estate? Will they be moved somewhere else? Will they be kept in a smaller place on the estate? Absolutely ridiculous. Rachel Reeves told to launch a tax raid on pensioners on the front page of the Daily Telegraph. And the Times goes with Nigel Farage after his press conference yesterday saying that he wanted to save £234 billion of taxpayers' money by banning foreigners from claiming benefits. People are looking into those numbers to see whether they add up. And also, of course, the big story from America is Paracetamol safe to use for women who are pregnant? Not according to Donald Trump, according to people in this country. There's no reason to link it with autism. But, of course, if you want to get in touch with us, you know what to do. 0344 499 1000. This is how it sounds.
Morning, Mike. Love your show. Listen every single day.
Hi, Mike. This is Daniel calling from Tel Aviv.
Morning, Mike. Got a breakfast team. Travelling Boz here.
Good morning, Mike. Hev from Kent.
Hi, Mike. Sammy here, all the way from New Zealand.
Morning, Mike. Sean from Grimsby here.
Morning, Mike. Len from Brighton here.
Captain Flip Flop strikes again. He's now taking his orders from the pro-Palestinian mob of the Labour Party. We're doomed!
Well, hopefully we're not doomed. Kevin Hollingrake coming up, chairman of the Conservative Party. Layla Cunningham as well, Westminster City Councillor for Reform UK. We've got loads to talk about, including the breaking news that car maker Jaguar Land Rover has announced it will extend its pause in production, i.e. not making any cars now until October the 1st, still recovering from a cyber attack. Also, the big one we've been talking about this morning is they want you to start using rainwater to flush your toilet, because apparently it's more safe for the environment and it could save you £100 a year. What's an absolute load of old cobblers? 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Also, as I said to Alan Duncan in the last hour, a slightly curious story on the front of The Guardian this morning, where it turns out a British-Egyptian human rights activist called Alaa Abd El Fattah is going to be released, by the looks of things, from an Egyptian jail after serving 6 years for sharing a Facebook post. But guess who's been very, very active in trying to make sure that he gets released? Yes, that's right, the former human rights lawyer, Sir Keir Starmer. Apparently he doesn't like people being locked up for social media posts, particularly if it's in foreign countries. Doesn't mind locking them up here, obviously. Also, Jonathan Pole has been very active in trying to get this guy out, as has the former Foreign Secretary David Lammy. How extraordinary. Funny old world, isn't it? Let's talk to Kevin Hollingrake, who is the chairman of the Conservative Party, of course, Tory MP. Kevin, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to see you. I mean, lots to talk about this morning with regard to Keir Starmer in his foreign policy, but let's talk a little bit about a letter that you've written to the Electoral Commission, because the Parliamentary Commission for Standards as well. You're concerned about this £700,000 donation money, which appears to have been, shall we say, not exactly transparently passed from one place to another.
Yeah, I mean, it's another cover-up. We saw Angela Rayner trying to cover up her misdeeds with her stamp duty. We're seeing similar behaviour now from the Prime Minister and his chief advisor, Morgan McSweeney, about a cover-up of these donations, which came from a donor they didn't want to disclose at a time when Keir Starmer was trying to secure leadership of the Labour Party off Jeremy Corbyn. They got it from a donation from what they obviously thought was a sensitive source. And so they decided not to declare it, that you can't do that. It's supposed to be declared to the Electoral Commission. And also, apparently, Keir Starmer himself has not declared his donations he received personally for things like polling and for other kinds of support to the parliamentary standards, through the parliamentary standards process. So we've asked for an investigation by the Electoral Commission and indeed by the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner.
You've also said that you called on the Electoral Commission to investigate and refer the case to police, because you say it's not just bad judgment, it's a potential crime.
Well, that's right. Not declaring donations received in this way is a potential crime. So, you know, if there is an offence has been committed, it should be investigated. Keir Starmer should be treated like any other citizen in this country. If you do something wrong, and particularly if you then cover it up, which has clearly happened, and we've got the emails, and people who want to read the letter I've written to the Electoral Commission or the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner, it sets it all out there, exactly what we've received in terms of this information. It shows that Morgan McSweeney lied to the Electoral Commission when he said it'd been an admin error when they failed to declare it the last time. It actually was a deliberate concealing of the source of these donations. That was the reason they weren't properly declared. So this has been a cover-up.
It's an awful lot of money, isn't it, to forget to register?
Well, £740,000, a huge amount, and this was then passed on to both Keir Starmer and to various other Labour politicians, including Rachel Reeves and Lucy Powell, and they declared their donations. Keir Starmer's not, and that's a very significant breaking of the rules. And certainly if a Conservative politician had done it, Keir Starmer would be calling for our heads, and we want a proper investigation. Due process should take place. But I think these are very serious allegations that need to be answered.
I mean, ever since the Keir Starmer government has been going, they seem to have had one scandal after another. They said that they were going to be transparent in public office. They said they were going to be an organisation that put the country first and the party second. They said that they were going to be bringing up new standards of public life. They weren't going to allow for sleaze. It was going to be a broom. Everything was going to be different. You know, where's it all gone wrong for them?
Well, I think they just took in opposition. They took the moral high ground. They said they were squeaky clean. They criticised anybody who did anything wrong. And when you enter office and you do things wrong, you should expect to be held to account. So, and clearly, I personally think it's because people like Keir Starmer thinks he is so virtuous that he can't do anything that's not virtuous because of his virtuosity. You know, I think it's this Kafkaesque kind of approach he's taken to this whole thing since he entered office, taking all those gifts from Lord Ali, of course, and then we've seen scandal after scandal, as you say, even recently. Angela Rayner, which we exposed her wrongdoing, Peter Mandelson with his Epstein relationship, and now we're seeing this donation scandal, and it is a scandal. You cannot take donations from sources without declaring them to the Electoral Commission and then to the parliamentary authorities. This is wrong. It is clear what has happened. It needs to be investigated, and if found guilty, sanctions imposed.
Yeah. And what do you think that the Standards Commission and the Electoral Commission will do about your letter? Will they get straight to it? I mean, will they take months and months to look at this?
Well, we've seen previous investigations, particularly the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner can act very quickly. And again, the Electoral Commission, this evidence is very clear. And the point with this is the previous excuses for non-declaration of these donations was admin error. This email that we have got, that we provided to the Electoral Commission, says very clearly this was a deliberate cover-up. It should not take long at all to reinvestigate this and then take forward any action that needs to be taken. And potentially the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner can impose a suspension, of course, of a Member of Parliament, which Keir Starmer is, and that could lead to a recall petition potentially and a re-election, a by-election in his constituency. So that would be the end of the Prime Minister, I think, on that basis. But
yes.
You know, we're jumping ahead a bit, but that's the potential consequences of lying to the Electoral Commission and of not properly declaring donations.
It's a serious story, very serious indeed. Well, I hope you continue to pursue it. Meanwhile, back in the sort of world of immigration control, we were told last week that the new one-in, one-out scheme was a massive success because they've proven beyond a reasonable doubt that they can send people out of the country. They sent one person, then they sent a second person, then they sent a third person. That was all done by Friday. I don't know what's happened since then, do you?
Well, we know 9,909 people have come in that period of time, so I don't think it's exactly one in, one out. I mean, we knew this was going to be a failed policy. It's embarrassing for the government. The numbers of people coming over on the small boats has increased by virtually 50% since they took office. This failed policy smashing the gangs, which we told them wouldn't work. There's only one policy that will work, and that's the deportation policy back to the people, illegal migrants, home country, or to a third country where they can't be returned to their home country. That's what we legislated for in the last Parliament. Labour and the Liberal Democrats opposed that 134 times. Then the courts opposed it. We had to re-legislate again. And then just after then, Labour took office and scrapped it all. That would have worked, there's no doubt about it, and we need to re-implement a policy like that. We have said we will do that. We'll deport all illegal migrants from this country. That's what needs to happen. Kemi Badenoch is strong enough to do it. We need to make probably some changes to the law. That will be announced very shortly, exactly what we're doing on things like European Convention on Human Rights and refugee legislation. We need to make sure we can control our borders and that Parliament and the courts can't stop us doing that.
And what's going on with the ambassadorial job in America? Because Peter Mandelson, I'm told, is still occupying the ambassadorial residence. I don't know if that's true. But when are they going to announce a new ambassador?
Well, it's a question you should probably put to Keir Starmer or one of his ministers, I think.
Well, I would if they
Mike,
came on the show,
no
Kevin.
Why
But
he's hanging around
they never come on the show, you know, so I don't get to ask them.
Well, you're too tough a questioner. There's too many questions to answer, I think, and they wouldn't really like to give answers to, I think, Mike. But another one for them in terms of actually doing something. But there's so many things they've got wrong right now, particularly, of course, on the economy. They've got disastrous policies on the economy. We're in my opinion, Mike, the only party that won't bankrupt this country. We've got a sensible approach to doing all the things we need to do in terms of things like migration and making sure we make sure we've got a strong economy without breaking the bank. You know, it's really important that we make sure we live within our means, which means good welfare reform, which is making sure our public sector becomes more efficient, and we can then pay for all the things we need without having to overtax people and without having to get into that doom loop that Rachel Reeves is in terms of raising taxes, which further depresses the economy. So it has to raise taxes again, and then you carry on like that. It doesn't end. It doesn't end in the right place at all.
No, just be up your own backside, I think, I'm afraid. Kevin, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Kevin Hollerich, there, MP, Chairman of the Conservative Party, chasing after the Parliamentary Standards Authorities and also the Electoral Commission, asking to have them both investigate this cover-up, the alleged cover-up by Keir Starmer and Morgan McSweeney, £700,000 of donations, which they forgot to register, apparently. We don't believe that, do we? Forgot to register it, really? You know, absolutely unbelievable. This from Sharon, who said, "Hi again, Mike. I noticed queuing at the bar at holiday camps and Wetherspoons during COVID. It's freaky. Best way to break the spell is to simply stand along the bar, then other like-minded people join in. Then all is well, and they're not queuing at the bar world." Absolutely right. "I've worked in hospitality for 38 years, says Joe in Leicester, and I still do. A big queue puts people off coming in. That's why bars are 20 foot long and not a hatch. Good bar staff know who's next. Get your elbows in, catch the eye, job done." Totally. That's exactly what you should do. Let's talk to Layla Cunningham, Westminster City Councillor for Reform UK. Layla, very good morning to you.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Good to see you. Big day for Nigel Farage yesterday. Unveiled an awful lot of plans for saving the country a bunch of money. We keep hearing from the Tories there that they're the only ones that can do anything without bankrupting the country. I'm sure he was on the brink of saying, "Oh, none of this is costed," but a very popular announcement from Nigel Farage yesterday. What do you make of it all, and how's it going to work?
Well, I think the principle is simple. You earn your rights. You don't just arrive and claim them. As we know, the Conservatives brought in 3.8 million long-term migrants to our country. 96% were non-EU. Yeah. That's after people voted for Brexit for many reasons, but one of them was controlled migration. And most of those that came, the 3.8 million, are low-skilled. And really what the press conference focused yesterday was the 800,000 that are on track to gain indefinite leave to remain by 2030. And Mike, of those, half will never work. Many will bring untold dependents, because once you get ILR, you can. And every one of those will have full access to our welfare system. And we estimate that's about 234 billion. And that's 4 times the defence budget and 12 times the police budget, especially in view of today, when we hear that taxes are going to go up because, again, they're spending too much. And 1 in 6 people on universal credit today. I think
that was the shocking statistic, really, 1 in 6, because if you extrapolate that as per the number of people in the country, you're ending up talking about, you know, a provision of something like 10 million foreigners claiming benefits, you know, out of a national total of, you know, say 60 million people, which is, I know that's it's an extrapolated figure, but it gives you an idea, because we don't have that many foreign nationals in the country, but obviously as a proportion, they're claiming a lot more benefits.
We don't even have the exact figures, because I don't know if you heard yesterday in the press conference.
Yeah, they won't tell you, will they?
No, they won't tell us. But, you know, that's about 9 billion a year going to people who don't contribute enough to pay it back and often never will. And we know that recent migrants do earn significantly less than British workers.
Yeah.
And a lot of their dependents don't work at all. I mean, people are saying it's wrong, it's this, you know, the economic model is broken. We're allowing younger, poorer, larger families coming into Britain, and it's the taxpayer footing the bill. And I think people have just had enough.
Yeah, they have. I guess the questions for many people are: is it workable? Can it be done? Will you face massive opposition? I mean, you've seen the way the papers have treated it. Depending on which paper you pick up this morning, you know, you will get the reaction that you might expect to get, I suppose. But you know, generally speaking, reform voters and people who are thinking about voting reform are pretty much in favour of it.
I think anyone who's working hard and getting less in return and paying more taxes is going to be in favour of it. Everyone's saying, oh, you know, you're going to deport this, you're going to deport my grandmother who's been here for... We're not going to deport anyone. If you've been here for longer and you qualify for citizenship, then show your commitment to Britain and apply for citizenship. I've had messages from people who have been on indefinite leave for decades.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you've been here for decades and apply for citizenship and this won't apply to you.
Right.
And
isn't that part of the problem, that the word indefinite is a very loose and kind of nebulous word? You can't. How can you have indefinite leave to remain?
Right.
What if you commit a crime? Do you still have indefinite leave to remain?
I mean, I know. Well, and you say that, and actually that is the case. So practically, when people do commit a crime, they're not deported, and it does come down sometimes to the human ECHR. They claim under Article 8 that they can't be deported. So yes, you have people here who not only come and claim benefits, commit crimes, and we can't deport them. And so they'll have to apply for a 5-year renewable visa. It's what any serious country does. We need people who come into the country who are a net benefit, not a net drain financially. And it's as simple as that. And we need it because we're bankrupt and we don't have money. And all we hear about are tax rises, like, even though I don't really like to agree with any Conservative MP, but we are in a doom loop, and the doom loop started under them.
Yeah.
Under the Conservatives, and that has to stop. We need to focus on growth now, and we're not going to grow our economy if we keep giving it away.
No, of course. And I was asking Kevin Hollybreak, I'll ask you because you may know the answer. I'm told that the plane that was supposed to arrive on Saturday, full of migrants coming officially from France, didn't come. So we still, as far as we know, have not replaced the 3 that went out last week. But, you know, Keir Starmer's had a busy, you know, few days with Donald Trump and recognising Palestine, but it's now back to the business of the immigration statistics. And I'm afraid, you know, 1,000 people came in last Friday or thereabouts. 3 have gone out. This week, none have gone out. And we see they seem to have gone very quiet.
But even if, you know, it's not really a 1 in, 1 out to me, they should just say it's a swap. Right,
Yeah.
We're not losing any, and the message is, if you make it here, there's about a 99% chance you're going to stay.
Yeah.
And every smuggler knows that, every migrant knows that, and that's why the numbers are going to keep going up. It's a weak deal, and it actually highlights the weakness of our government that they would make such a deal with France. A real bilateral deal would be like, you know, you take back your migrants. Why should we take them? But as you know, Mike, they get a veto on who we send back, so they're not going to take any of the really troublesome ones, and we don't get a veto.
Right. I know, the whole system is completely sort of crooked, it seems to me. But listen, great to talk to you later. Thank you very much indeed. Lady Cunningham there, Westminster City Councillor from Reform UK. Ralph, on the subject of Gatwick Airport, says this: it's my understanding that Gatwick do not use their allocated slots to capacity anyway. I live east of the runway, 12 miles away, and as we're fairly high up, we are suffering from excessive noise anyway, which stops us using the garden with family at those times the planes are flying overhead. House prices will nosedive even if this far out. It's total madness. No financial reason other than foreign shareholders. Does this government never listen to their public? There are tangible reasons not to build this additional runway, which is why it's taken 12 years. Well, I mean, they have built it. They just haven't used it at the same time, have they? Gribbo in Westerham says, I'm not too sure why people are so surprised by Starmer's latest action. If he wasn't our Prime Minister or an MP, I've got a strong feeling he'd be out in the high-vis vest every Saturday leading one of the pro-Palestine marches in one of our major cities. Yeah, very possibly. Morning, Mike. The only thing Starmer will be building will be mud huts if he keeps running the country like he's doing. Great show. Never miss it. Well, thank you very much indeed. Let's get a voice note from Brian on Starmer's latest tweet about jobs.
Morning, Mike. Brian from South End. So, Starmer's tweeting again. You know, his government, yes, his government, has created not more jobs or given the go-ahead for more building to create thousands and thousands more jobs to get the economy moving. Well, in the 15 months they've been in power, let's just count up how many thousands of jobs he's created. You know, when he first came in, the construction, There'll be thousands of jobs made. The Disney World, whatever it is, a theme park, thousands of jobs created. Oh, the steel engine, we'll say thousands of jobs, thousands of jobs, thousands of jobs. I'd like him to show me just one job that he has created, that him and his government have actually created and has made it worthwhile and has sort of created employment for just one person. What an absolute BS.
Brian, I take your point. You're absolutely right. Although there is currently a job going to be ambassador to the United States of America. There is that job. He's created that. Because he could have just left the woman in it who was doing it, who Donald Trump was perfectly happy with. But instead, he appointed my Lord Peter Mandelson, who made a complete rick of it due to his rather obsequious friendship with a convicted paedophile, one Jeffrey Epstein, who seems to have also now taken down Fergie and Prince Andrew and Peter Mandelson and various others. I don't know what I can tell you about his job creation schemes, but they're not as good as he makes them out to be. Jaguar Land Rover practically ground to a halt. You know, they're not even doing anything, never mind making any jobs. Here's one from David. He says, I haven't come across the number of migrants that France sent us last Saturday. Please help. Well, I think we've got the impression now that they didn't come. They maybe are waiting till they've got more people to send, because at the moment they've only got, if it's 1 in, 1 out, they've only got 3 to send. And on the subject of the old, what do you call it, wokery in Bristol City Council, women's identity is being taken over, says Gooddeep. Chest-feeding babies, are they so deluded they think they can play women's roles as mothers? This is a safeguarding issue. This woke ideology needs to be eradicated. It absolutely does. There's so much that needs to change in this country and so many months in which to do it before this government completely collapses. Coming up, we're going to be speaking to Taxpayers Alliance because they're going to respond to Nigel Farage's speech yesterday at the Reform Conference about what is exactly going to happen with foreign migrants, what's going to happen with foreign benefits payments, and how Reform are actually going to save 234 billion quid of taxpayers' money. It's coming up next.
We will pass what legislation is necessary to see this through. And I think the majority of the public will be behind us because nobody wants to pay so much taxes for people who've just arrived. And look, it's not about race or nationality. It's about rights and responsibility.
But you know that's what people are going to say. You know that's what the left is going to say.
Of course.
This is bigotry.
They say that for everything. It all comes down to race. They call us far right for wanting to prioritise British people. But, the public owes nothing to someone who arrived 5 years ago and hasn't contributed. I'm sorry, we just don't.
What possibly has spooked him completely into this precipitate action was Emmanuel Macron, the French president, saying that he was going to do this. And I think that probably Sir Keir Starmer thought, well, I'm going to be left, looking even more weak or I'm going to be in an even weaker position in terms of these people who want my head if I don't go along with this. Plus, I'm afraid to say, I think that Starmer himself, he's upset.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:28, here with you for another half an hour or so. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be along, of course, taking you through from 10 until 1, followed by Ian Collins, followed by Jeremy Kyle, followed by Kevin O'Sullivan, followed by Petrie Hoskin, followed then, of course, by Harry Cole with his new show, Harry Cole Saves the West, every Thursday, Monday to Thursday night from 10 p.m. Let's get a voice note from Matt on Gatwick.
Morning, Mike. Matt here from Swindon. Well, I've heard it all now. Apparently, the Labour government are going to add holiday destinations. That tantamounts to what they're going to do for us, the British people. I was under the belief they were there to make our lives better, cut our taxes, just give us a better life, full stop. But no, we're going to get more holiday destinations. She sounds so enthused about it as well. I give up. Have a lovely day.
Well, at least you didn't mention the E-gates. Remember Starmer with the E-gates? Oh, the E-gates. It'd be great. This is what we've done. We've done this great new deal with the European Union. What does it mean? Does it mean that we can get cheaper food? Does it mean that we can have, absolutely zero problem of getting from one place to another without being stopped by immigration specialists? Oh, yes, we will have the E-gates. The E-gates. Yeah, this is fate of the E-gates. I mean, come on. How about this? This is when Starmer announced an historic deal to protect all the jobs at Jaguar Land Rover. This was in June. Check this out.
I'm really pleased to announce to you, and I wanted to come to you to announce that we've agreed the basis of a historic economic prosperity deal. And that is a deal that will protect British businesses and save thousands of jobs in Britain. Really important, skilled, well-paid jobs. And as Adrian has said, I was here with you just, as I say, a few weeks ago, and I promised you that I would deliver in the national interest. And today I'm really pleased to come back here to be able to look you in the eye and to say I've delivered on the promise I made to you.
Yeah, 500 people were sacked about a week later, and since then production at Jaguar Land Rover has completely ground to a halt. They're not actually making anything at all. No cars, 500 fewer people. So well done for making that promise, Sir Keir Starmer. Let's talk to William Yarwood, spokesperson at Taxpayers Alliance. William, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. Thanks for having me on the show, as always.
Not at all. Good to see you. We want to hear your reaction to Nigel Farage's pledge, basically, to do what everyone wants him to do, which is to save a load of money, 236 or 334 billion pounds off the taxpayers' exchequer, in order to stop paying benefits to so many foreign people.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think this is quite a bold policy proposal, which I think the party should actually listen up about, because I think this is where the British people are at the moment. So let's just get into the stats quite quickly.
Yeah.
Regarding universal credit, the number of foreign nationals on universal credit is estimated to be about 1.3 million people, right? Yeah. That's not a small amount of people at all. Right. And that's actually increased by 40% just over the last 3 years. And if you look at the overall cost of it, not just with universal credit, but with other benefits as well, if there is a foreign-born national inside just one household, that's costing taxpayers upwards of £1 billion a month, which is like £12 billion a year, which is more than enough to take a penny off income tax, or even scrap inheritance tax in its entirety, meaning that small businesses and family farms won't have to be going out of business. So I think that, actually this is a relatively bold proposal, but the question is, Mike, whether they have the will and the knowledge of how to actually implement it.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Because an awful lot of the time we get told by HMRC and others in civil service jobs that, we can't really change anything because it costs too much money to change the system. The administration costs alone mean that it's actually better if we just just keep paying out all this money, which I've always believed to be a complete shibboleth, you know. There must be a time at which the government of this country can take a grip of the public finances and say, no, look, this is what we're going to do. You say it's going to cost X, make it cost Y, because that's what you do in business.
Yeah, totally. And also, I think the problem is that the civil service and the sort of wider state, I mean, we're running a campaign at the moment called Britain's Quangos Uncovered, which reveals how many politicians that we elect actually don't have all that much power at all, because they've siphoned off power years after years after years to unelected bureaucrats and bodies that many people have never even heard of, which, by the way, full Mike, me and you and your listeners pay for via our taxes, despite the fact that they have no democratic oversight or accountability at all. And I think if Reform's serious about this plan, they need to look at wider civil service reforms and wider Quango reforms so that they can actually push these things through, because I think for many years, Mike, there's been a sort of a radical shift in people's views on migration, to the extent that people actually now want the abolition of indefinite leave to remain. They want foreign nationals to not get access to the welfare state or even the National Healthcare Service. And actually that's where the centre ground is. And if the civil service and the wider state is not on side with the British people, then that raises questions about who they're there to serve.
Well, exactly right. And so in terms of the sort of time frame that Nigel Farage explained yesterday, how sort of credible is that?
Well, I think the time frame is still a little bit loose. I mean, the 234 billion figure has actually been disputed slightly by the very people who actually came up with the figure in the first place, and said that actually it needs to be revised. But putting that to one side for the moment, I think that if this is over the course of maybe a parliament or even two parliaments, I think that could be a realistic plan. I don't think we should get too excited with the idea that in 1 year suddenly the government will be able to save 234 billion, because I think that is slightly for the birds. But nevertheless, there are great costs that can be made here, especially on the welfare front, and also in regards to low-skilled migrants, Mike, because low-skilled migrants, say if you're a low-skilled migrant coming in at the age of 25 and you stay until pension age, you're costing taxpayers around £150,000 a year, and actually this goes up to around 1 million if you live until 90. So low-skilled migration has, not just unemployment, but low-skilled migration is costing taxpayers quite a lot of money every single year, and I think, quite frankly, the British people have had enough of it, and they're right to do so.
Yeah, and the other thing that Nigel Farage is very sort of, cognizant of and very good at is influencing other parties like the government, because he's already made the Labour government move on immigration status, on immigration numbers, on immigration policy. So will this have that same effect, do you think, on Keir Starmer? He'll have to find different ways of saving money. If he doesn't like these, he's still going to have to find ways to match the savings.
Yeah, well, let's see if that actually happens. I mean, Keir Starmer attempted to save some money with welfare cuts just a few months ago, and we saw what an absolute mess that was, because various of his backbenchers refused to toe the party line. I mean, his new plan, where they've actually only put, I think, 2 or 3 illegal migrants there, saying it's some sort of huge success, when in reality it's a bit of a fluke, despite the fact that we've given millions and millions of pounds to France over the last few years to try and get these deals organised. Look, I'm all in favour of the Everton window shifting on this issue, and of the other political parties want to get in line. That's good, because actually, Mike, on a more serious and fundamental point, I think there has been a democratic deficit between politicians and the people on this issue for quite a long time, where the people have constantly voted for political parties that have said they will reduce migration in all of its forms, and yet, especially with the last Conservative government, you saw migration, this touted Boris wave, going through the roof, to the extent that now we have a burgeoning population, public services are under strain, and it's costing taxpayers billions and billions of pounds every single year. So I think that if other parties start to realise this, that could actually fix the democratic deficit between the people and the politicians in a decent time.
Yeah, it's definitely time for that. Good to see you. William Yarwood, spokesman from the Taxpayers Alliance, thank you very much indeed. Pop in Paphos says this: here in Cyprus we used to have mega water shortages until they built desalination plants in the sea. I wonder where you could find that much water near an island like Great Britain. Well, I've been promoting desalination plants for years. People used to laugh at me and go, "Oh yeah, that's a really clever idea. Or you're going to use salt water to water the ground." No, a desalination plant takes the salt out of it, you monkeys. How about Justin on queuing at the bar?
From Costerdale, Halifax here, on a beautiful sunny morning. On the queuing in bars and boozers thing, the problem that you've got is back in the day, before they started turning them all into swanky drinking outlets, you used to have a big long bar, and you used to have 3 or 4 staff on, or 2 or 3 staff. But now they're tiny little bars, so if you start queuing, you're going to be queuing out the door. I've seen it implemented around here, I'd say for the last 12 months, maybe more, in West Yorkshire. It is a bit silly. I do understand it when a bar is really small and you just do that anyway, out of just purely common sense. But yeah, I've noticed the queues that can go back, and it's just ridiculous. It defeats the object, really, of having more than 1 or 2 bar staff on. Anyway, listen, top show, buddy. You get me through the week in these very, very dire, dull times, but really appreciate it. Speak to you soon.
Justin, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, just don't queue at the bar. Just don't. Just go at the front of the queue and get yourself served. Now it's autumn, says JL. The NHS will be telling us how they won't be able to cope with winter. Of course they won't. Yeah, any day now will it be, you know, we're getting in winter crisis mode because we're getting into October. Of course. It's a winter crisis. Coming up, Jake Wallace-Simon is going to join us, author and columnist, author of Israelophobia, and then Dale Vince, founder of Ecotricity. We haven't spoken to him for a while. He's coming back on. We'll ask him about Gatwick and all of that sustainable nonsense. And also, we might even ask him about desalination plants. Why isn't he building any? There's his talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. This, of course, is the home of common sense. We're here until 10 o'clock. Julie Hartley-Brewer making it through till 1 after that. On the paracetamol front, John says you can buy paracetamol from any supermarket. You don't have to go to a pharmacy. You are limited to 2 packets per person. Yeah, I guess that's true. But will they sell it to you if you're pregnant? Some people aren't sure. Please don't let Starmer think the Mandelson affair has gone away, says Paul. The man must go for that, aside from all the other corruption and idiocy. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely right. And Richie in Grimsby says, I have a water harvester at my house. It was a new build 13 years ago when I moved in. Can't tell the difference, really. Love the show. Don't know what that is. Here's one from on rainwater again, from Josephine. We were lucky enough to build our own house. It finished in 2020. My husband designed it, so we have an underground water storage tank that keeps rainwater that then goes to an indoor tank that is used to flush the loos and supply the washing machine. If it runs out, it fills up from the mains. We've also put in massive water butts for the garden. I don't mind admitting I enjoy not being totally dependent on the useless, disorganised, overpriced water companies. New builds could incorporate such a system. It works. Well, if you can do it, I'm all for, you know, reducing cost. I'm all for taking the mickey out of the water companies because they don't seem to know what on earth they're doing. Ridiculous. Let's talk to Jake Wallace-Simons, author and columnist of a book called Israelophobia, the newest version of the oldest hatred and what to do about it. Jake, very good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good to see you. Unlike Keir Starmer, I wish you a Rosh Hashanah, Happy New Year, without actually recognising the Palestinian state, if you don't mind. How are things in the community today?
Well, I think Keir Starmer has done what few people have managed to do, which is unite Jews in animosity towards him. I think he's managed to annoy so many people across the Jewish political spectrum. You know, the old joke is 2 Jews, 3 opinions, but everyone has one opinion now, which is that he should take his recognition and get rid of it, shall we say. I mean, it's just the most appalling insult to Jewish communities across Britain and indeed across the world, let alone in Israel. I think that part of the problem is that Keir Starmer comes from such a comfortable, sort of abstracted position. He's lost touch with what it means to have to fight for your life. This is something that we used to understand in the Second World War and in the years following. But since then, we've become so bloated and, you know, sort of mollycoddled with our huge welfare state and massive taxes and everything. We've lost touch with what it means to have to actually fight a war that is not pleasant, that you didn't ask for, but that's absolutely necessary if you're going to protect your people and get your innocent hostages back. That's what Israel's trying to do. And Britain, I'm afraid, has made itself into an enemy of Israel. Siding with Hamas is another obstacle that Israel has to contend with if it is to win the war and get its people home.
Well, I see this morning in the Telegraph, the Prime Minister is asking for the Palestinian Authority to end its pay-to-slay policy, where they hand out stipends to the families of martyrs killed for attacks on Israelis. You might have thought he may have put that down as a bit of a condition before he decided to recognise them.
I mean, I think most people opening their paper, their jaw would hit the floor. You know, it's a marmalade dropper moment when you see that the very regime that Keir Starmer has recognised already as a state hasn't dropped its policy to pay public funds, reward money, to anybody convicted of terrorism against Jews. It has not stopped its policy of incitement in schools. Palestinian school textbooks are full of Jew hatred. It hasn't stopped that. Mahmoud Abbas, the leader of Palestine, has literally got a PhD in Holocaust revisionism. He said just before October the 7th openly in a speech that was reported by the BBC that Hitler only killed the Jews because the Jews were engaged in usury and money problems, not because of their Jewishness. He is serving his 21st year of what was supposed to be a 4-year term, and Hamas is actually supposed to be the bad guys, and he's supposed to be the moderate one. It just defies belief that Keir Starmer would recognise a state of that sort, placing no conditions in advance, just saying, look, here's your state, now please would you mind stopping the incitement? No, all right, well, as you were.
Or maybe let the hostages go. Have a look at this. This is the ambassador of Palestine to the UK, Hussam Zomlot, meeting Anas Sarwar yesterday, who's the leader of Scottish Labour.
We do need the genocide to end. We do need the ethnic cleansing in the West Bank to end, and we need to bring the war criminals to account, and we need to move forward so we take the tangible, real step on this foundational step of recognition to actually enforce the full force of the law on all these illegalities, be it settlements, be it settlers and terrorists, be it officials and army officers, and we make sure that actually we move to establish the state of Palestine on the land of Palestine with Jerusalem its capital, and inshallah we will be meeting you, and this is an opportunity and us to say thank you.
So he's now communicating to the Labour government of Scotland that they want Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine.
Yeah, I've got to say it's quite creepy to watch people who have failed to condemn terror, people from a regime that pays reward money to terrorists. You know, that Hassan Zomlot himself, what was reported yesterday, failed to condemn the shooting of Jews just a couple of years ago. It's quite creepy to see them using the language of human rights, the language of international law, to further their goals, and for our gullible, naive, pathetic Prime Minister and his officials to embrace them and to give them the ability to further their goals step by step. It's quite sinister, it's quite creepy. I think we've reached the point where our own naivety and gullibility is costing lives overseas. And sadly, it's only a matter of time before it begins to cost lives here at home as well.
And the vast majority of people in this country, of course, don't want it to be the case. You know, Keir Starmer didn't ask anybody, he didn't have any debates in Parliament, he didn't, you know, have any kind of, conversations even in the public sphere, whether it be on television programmes or radio shows. You know, there was no conversation at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an example of another example of where the elites, the supposedly most educated, most sophisticated, most kind of urbane leaders, the grown-ups in the room, aren't able to see what everybody else can see with common sense with their own eyes, which is you've got one side, Israel, which is, of course, it's flawed, but it's a democracy that respects human rights, respects the rule of law, respects minorities, and is doing its best to defend its people in wartime. You've got another side, which at the worst is openly jihadi, and at best is corrupt, brutal, and indulgent of terror. It's obvious to everybody which side we should be on, and yet our sophisticated, educated leaders can't see it, and instead supports the jihadis over the democracy. It's absolutely deplorable.
Yeah, incredible. Jake, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. We've got to run. Jake Wallace-Simons, author and columnist there, with his take on what happened at the beginning of this week. Coming next, Dale Vince is going to join us, the founder of Ecotricity. We're going to talk to him about Gatwick, we'll talk to him about water, we'll talk to him about all manner of things. He might even have something to say about Israel. This is Talk.
By we will pass what legislation is necessary to see this through, and I think the majority of the public will be behind us because nobody wants to pay so much taxes for people who've just arrived. And look, it's not about race or nationality, it's about rights and responsibility.
But you know that's what people are going to say. You know that's what the left is going to say.
Of course.
This is bigotry.
They say that for everything. It all comes down to race. They call us far right for wanting to prioritise British people, but the public owes nothing to someone who arrived 5 years ago and hasn't contributed. I'm sorry, we just don't.
What possibly has spooked him completely into this precipitate action was Emmanuel Macron, the French president, saying that he was going to do this. And I think that probably Sir Keir Starmer thought, well, I'm going to be left, looking even more weak or I'm going to be in an even weaker position in terms of these people who want my head if I don't go along with this. Plus, I'm afraid to say, I think that Starmer himself, he's obsessed by what
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:52. This from Andrew. Morning, Mike. What happens to those people with indefinite leave to remain when they reach pension age? There are lots of UK citizens who do not get full pension because they don't have enough years of NI contributions. Will these people have the same problem? Well, it's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that. But, yeah, the trouble is there's too many people with indefinite leave to remain, too many people who don't put enough money into the system and expect to take money out of it. So you can't really have it both ways at the end of the day. Business is business. And you can either run it into the ground or you can run it at a profit, like Dale Vince does. He runs Ecotricity, a very successful business. And we haven't had a word for a while, so we thought we'd get him on. Dale, very good morning to you.
Yeah, Mike, how's things? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Don't know where you've been hiding, man.
Oh, yeah, I don't know either.
How's life, anyway?
It's all right, you know. I won't complain. I'm busy.
I mean, I've been seeing a lot. I've been seeing a lot of stories about you. One story that turns out not to be true. You don't want to offer subsidies to oil and gas companies in the North Sea. I see that you've corrected that. So, what do you want to do about? You quite like digging in the North Sea, don't you? You want some more oil and gas to come out of there.
No, that's not. That's not right. What I said last week was misreported by the Telegraph.
That's why I'm giving you a chance to correct it.
Thank you. But it was also misreported by The Guardian, which was a big surprise. The Guardian claimed I supported new oil and gas drilling in the North Sea.
Well, they get a lot wrong.
That was completely fake news. I was shocked, Mike. Honestly, I was. And the Telegraph reported that I wanted subsidies for the North Sea, and it's not quite right. What I recommended was we take the same scheme, a CFD, a contract for difference, that we use for green energy, and we apply it to the North Sea to protect the jobs we have there and the industry for the last 10 years or 15 years of production. It'd be good for the country. It'd be good for the workers. They're good for industry. And we could end this debate that sets up green energy as the enemy of North Sea oil and gas.
Yeah, well, the problem is that as long as we keep taking North Sea oil and gas from Norway and buying it, which they're using almost the same field that we've got access to and that we're closing down, that doesn't make any sense, does it?
I don't think it lacks any sense. I think not drilling for new oil and gas in the North Sea itself doesn't make sense. And we're in a transition. 50% of our electricity is from green energy now. And within 5 years, we'll be very close to 100%. So this transition is happening. We don't need to drill for new oil and gas ourselves. We can buy what we need, if we still need it, in 10 years' time on international markets.
But that's not any greener, though, is it? Because if we're just buying it from somebody else who's still digging it out of the ground, then the ground is still damaging the environment, as far as we're concerned. So all you're really doing is virtue signalling and saying, oh, well, it's not our drilling, it's not our money, we're just going to buy it from somebody else who's doing it. It's like, you know, getting somebody else to murder the guy you want to kill instead of doing it yourself.
The bit that I said that you missed is that within 5 years we'll be at nearly 100% green on the grid.
Yeah, we won't.
And if we need oil and gas, we can buy it easily enough, but we won't need it.
Yeah, but all these AI companies that are coming into Britain to start these data mining, libraries and all of these big data manufacturing AI centres, they're going to need massive amounts of electricity and they're going to need massive amounts of water, and we don't have either.
Well, we definitely have a water problem, but we have no shortage of green energy in our country. We can just keep building it.
Well, we can, yeah, but if you've got no shortage of it, why do you have to keep building it? Either you've got a shortage of it or you haven't.
To keep pace with the new demand that you're talking about.
Yeah, but the new demand is going to wreck the national grid. That's what people say. You know, there's a place in Texas, right, where they've got a big AI centre, and they've basically run out of water because they need so much water to power these things and to make them work that they haven't got any water anymore.
The US has a water problem anyway, particularly in the West. Parts of that could become uninhabitable in the next few decades.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've been going to Dallas for a long time. I'm sure it'll be there for at least another 50 years while I'm alive. What about desalination plants? Why don't you open some of them?
Well, you know, they're very energy intensive.
And a bit like AI centres. Well, you just say you keep building the energy, don't you?
Well, we can, but you don't let me finish. That's the problem. I was going to say they're very energy intensive.
It's taking a long time.
It's not. Well, I just said 5 words. I mean, that's not me taking a long time, is it?
You've got to get snappier. We're nearly finished with the show.
Oh, God. That's right. There are better ways to get water. I'm just trying to say that.
Well, all I'm saying is, a man of your means and a man of your capabilities, surely you could come up with a network of desalination plants, which I've been purporting would be the answer for about a good 5 or 6 years. You know, we're surrounded by salt water. People keep telling me the seawater's rising. So if we take some of it out and use it on the land, then scientifically that's actually a great idea, isn't it?
We can drink ourselves to safety. I like that as an idea, Mike.
Well, I mean, why not use water from the sea to spray plants and stuff?
All right. All I'm saying is I don't think we need to. It's energy intensive and expensive to get water that way. We've got better things that we can do to solve the water problem, which is to waste less water. We waste vast amounts by pouring it down the drain when we could reuse it, or leaking it out of pipes because the water companies aren't doing their job properly. And we don't actually have a water crisis per se. We had a drought this summer. And that's partly down to the lack of investment in infrastructure.
But not in Manchester, you didn't. I was up there at the weekend and it stopped raining.
Yeah, well, we had a monsoon to end the drought, didn't we?
Yeah, well, what's going on with your electric airline?
I don't know what you mean.
Eh?
Tell me what you mean.
Well, I thought you were starting up a first all-electric airline. That's what I'm told, EcoJet.
Yes, it's true.
Well, how's it going?
Well, it's going slower than we hoped.
Yeah.
But it's still going.
Well, when you say it's still going, have you actually got a plane in the air yet?
Not yet.
Not yet?
No, not yet.
Well, when do you expect, when can you invite me on the first inaugural flight of the first electric airline?
Well, if you'll come, you'll get an invite.
Well, yeah, when though?
When? I got a feeling we're looking at 18 months, maybe 2 years.
Right. What about
so the engines? The engines are in testing with the Civil Aviation Authority. They're being flown around to make them safe, and I expect that'll take 12 to 18 months, and then we'll be ready to go. Get ourselves a couple of planes, swap the engines out, and away we go.
Okay. What about Gatwick's second runway? What do you make of that?
Well, I'm relaxed about it, actually. I think you could say, right, tongue-in-cheek, you could say it just means there'll be more runways for when the electric planes get here.
Yeah. And what's the advantage of electric planes again?
Cost. They're cheaper to run. Cleanness. They don't make pollution at all.
How far do they go, though?
And they're silent. How about that? No noise. One of the biggest problems of the expansion of Gatwick is going to be the noise imposed on local people.
Yeah.
How far do they go? The range of the first plane would be 500 miles, and within a couple of years it would be 1,000 miles. So it's quite feasible to fly
I can't go to New York on it then?
Not yet, but Europe, I mean, that's a big deal.
All right, fair enough. I see you still wearing the old Palestinian thing. You were at the Palestinian embassy yesterday.
Yeah, it was.
That's been there for a while, isn't it?